Welcome back to Benton What Ifs. If you enjoy this kind of story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's start it.
What if Ben 10 was in the Marvel Universe Chapter 1, Worlds Apart, seriously? Again with the lasers? Ben Tennyson muttered, diving behind a chunk of broken concrete as purple energy blast scorched the ground where he'd stood seconds before. Smoke and dust filled the abandoned warehouse district, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows through shattered windows. 19-year-old Ben had expected a quiet patrol around Bellwood. But quiet and Tennyson never seemed to mix well. Now he was dodging fire from what looked like discount robot ninjas with fancy tech. Okay, let's even the odds. He lifted his wrist, the familiar weight of the Omnitrix a constant comfort. The circular dial popped up, displaying the silhouettes of his alien transformations. Humongosaur should make short work of these guys. The flash of emerald light engulfed him, his DNA rapidly rewriting itself into something distinctly non-human. But instead of becoming the 12-foot dinosaur alien, Ben felt his body shrink and change in a different way. Swampfire? Seriously? Ben looked down at his plant-based body, the methane pods on his shoulders already igniting. Not what I asked for, but I'll make it work. 3 robots converged on his position, weapons charging. Ben thrust his hands forward, sending streams of fire that melted the first robot's circuitry. The second leapt over the flames, blade extended. Ben sidestepped, grabbed the robot's arm, and let the vegetation of his form stretch and twist, wrapping around the metal attacker before squeezing until components cracked and sparked. That's 2, he counted, turning to face the third. Want to make it easy on yourself? The robot's answer came in the form of a grenade launcher appearing from its shoulder. Guess not. The explosion ripped through Swampfire's body, scattering plant matter across the warehouse floor. But Ben just laughed as his form regenerated rapidly, pulling scattered pieces back into place. Plant-based regeneration, he explained to the emotionless robot. Pretty handy, right? From the corner of his eye, Ben spotted a familiar purple glow emanating from behind a stack of crates. Whatever these robots were after, it had to be there. He sent a burst of fire to distract the remaining robot and sprinted toward the light source. Bingo, Ben whispered, finding what looked like a small purple crystal embedded in alien tech. This has got plumber business written all over it. The device hummed with increasing intensity as Ben approached. Something about it felt off, unstable. Years of experience with alien tech had taught him to recognize bad signs, and this thing was displaying all of them. Ben tapped the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. Gwen, Kevin, you there? I found some kind of alien tech. Looks like a transport crystal, but it's behaving weird. Only static answered him. Great. Comms are down. Ben reached for the device carefully. Better get this to Grandpa Max before, the crystal pulsed violently, bathing the warehouse in blinding purple light. Ben felt the Omnitrix react, its green energy suddenly intermingling with the purple glow. That's not good. The energy expanded outward, creating what looked like a tear in reality itself. Ben tried to step back, but the Omnitrix seemed magnetically drawn to the rift. Pain shot through his arm as the 2 energy signatures connected. No, no, no. The world around him dissolved into chaotic swirls of green and purple light. Ben felt himself being pulled, stretched, compressed, like being turned into all his aliens at once while also being none of them. His consciousness flickered as reality itself seemed to bend around him. And then nothing. Kid. Hey, kid. Can you hear me? Ben's eyes fluttered open to find a red and blue mask hovering over him, white eye lenses somehow conveying concern despite their expressionless design. 5 more minutes, Gwen, Ben mumbled automatically. Not Gwen, whoever that is. I'm Spider-Man. You know, friendly neighborhood wall crawler. The masked figure offered a hand. That was quite an entrance you made. Ben sat up, his head pounding. The Omnitrix still clung to his wrist, but the green hourglass symbol flickered inconsistently, shifting between bright green and a dull gray. Spider-Man? Ben repeated, confusion evident in his voice. Like, the comic book character. The masked hero tilted his head. Comic book? Okay, you definitely hit your head harder than I thought. He helped Ben to his feet. 1 second you weren't there, then boom, green flash and you're falling from what looked like a portal about 20 feet up. Ben looked around, taking in his surroundings. This wasn't the warehouse district. Tall buildings stretched toward the sky, people hurried along sidewalks, and yellow taxis honked impatiently in traffic. A sign nearby read, Queens Boulevard. I'm in New York. Ben blinked, trying to process this information. But I was just in Bellwood, and there was this alien tech with a purple crystal. Alien tech. Now you're speaking my language. Spider-Man's posture changed slightly, more alert. Though maybe we should get you checked out first. That was quite a fall, even if I did catch most of it with a web. Ben's attention snapped back to the costumed figure. Wait, you're actually Spider-Man? Like, for real? With the webs and the sticking to walls and everything? Last time I checked, yeah. Spider-Man shot a small web to demonstrate, sticking it to a nearby lamppost. Though usually people in New York aren't quite so surprised by that anymore. Ben ran a hand through his brown hair, mind racing. This isn't possible. You're a fictional character where I'm from. Unless. His eyes widened. The crystal. It must have been some kind of interdimensional transport device. The Omnitrix interacted with it and now I'm in a different universe. The Omni what now? Spider-Man asked, pointing to Ben's wrist. That fancy watch. Before Ben could answer, the Omnitrix suddenly sparked and glowed, the hourglass symbol stabilizing momentarily before the entire device reset itself with a mechanical whir. Omnitrix reboot complete. Genetic samples partially accessible. Warning, unknown dimensional coordinates detected. Connecting to Galvan Prime, failed. Emergency protocol activated. Ben stared at his wrist. Well, that doesn't sound good. Your watch talks. Spider-Man leaned in closer. And what's this about dimensional coordinates? A sudden explosion several blocks away interrupted their conversation. Smoke billowed into the sky, followed by screams and the wail of sirens. Spider-Man's head snapped toward the commotion. Rain check on the interdimensional chat. Sounds like trouble. Ben nodded, a familiar determination setting in. Different universe or not, people needed help. I'm coming with you. No offense, but you just fell out of a portal. Maybe sit this one out. Ben grinned, already activating the Omnitrix. Trust me, I can handle myself. The dial popped up, displaying alien silhouettes. Some were grayed out, but enough remained active. Time to be a hero. He slammed down the dial, green light enveloping his form. His body grew taller, muscles expanding as blue fur covered his skin. Sharp claws extended from massive hands, and a tiger-like face completed the transformation. Wrath, the alien form roared, flexing powerful arms. Let me tell you something, Spider-Man from another universe. Wrath doesn't sit anything out. Spider-Man staggered back, clearly startled. Holy! You just turned into a giant tiger wrestler. Wrath is an apoplexian. And Wrath is going to help. Without waiting for a response, the tiger-like alien bounded toward the explosion, leaping onto a building and scaling it with his claws. Wait up! Spider-Man called, shooting a web and swinging after him. This day just got a whole lot weirder. Chaos greeted them at the scene. What looked like a bank had half its front blown away, and 4 men in advanced tech suits were loading money into hovering containers. Civilians ran in panic as police tried to establish a perimeter. The wrecking crew, Spider-Man explained as they perched on a nearby rooftop. Bunch of thugs with enhanced tech. Usually Thor's problem, but they've been slumming it in New York lately. Wrath growled. Wrath doesn't care who they are. Wrath just knows they're going down. Before Spider-Man could suggest a plan, Wrath leaped from the building, landing with an earth-shaking impact in front of the criminals. Let me tell you something, wrecking crew who Wrath has never met before. Nobody wrecks stuff while Wrath is around except Wrath. The four criminals turned in surprise, their tech-enhanced weapons humming to life. What the hell is that thing? The largest one asked, hefting a massive technological hammer. Looks like the zoo's missing a kitty, another laughed, aiming what looked like a high-tech crowbar. Wrath roared, charging forward. Cosmic clothesline. He barreled into the nearest criminal, sending him flying into a parked car. The remaining three opened fire, energy blasts forcing Wrath to dodge and weave. Spider-Man swung into action, webbing one attacker's weapons and pulling himself into a two-footed kick. Thanks for the distraction, Tiger-Man, but maybe we coordinate next time. Spider-Man called, flipping over a blast. Wrath coordinates with his fists. The Apoplexian grabbed a chunk of concrete and hurled it at the hammer-wielding leader, who shattered it with a swing. Bulldozer, piledriver, flank him, the leader ordered. This freak's gonna make a nice trophy. Two of the criminals circled around, their powered exoskeletons whirring. Wrath snarled, ready to charge again, when Spider-Man swung low between them. Duck, big guy. Wrath instinctively dropped as Spider-Man's web line caught both criminals, yanking them together with a metallic crash. Wrath is impressed. Good team move. See? Coordination works. Spider-Man quipped, landing beside him. The leader, apparently called Wrecker based on Spider-Man's running commentary, charged forward, his tech hammer crackling with energy. You're dead, freak. Wrath caught the hammer mid-swing, the impact driving him back several feet but not knocking him down. Let me tell you something, hammer guy. Nobody hammers Wrath. With a mighty heave, Wrath yanked the weapon, pulling Wrecker off balance before delivering an uppercut that sent the villain skyward. Spider-Man finished the job with a web that caught Wrecker at the apex of his flight, leaving him dangling from a streetlight. The fourth member of the crew tried to escape with one of the floating money containers, but Wrath bounded after him, grabbing the container and the criminal in one motion. Serious butt-kicking. Wrath spun the hapless villain around before tossing him into a web Spider-Man had prepared. As police moved in to secure the criminals, Wrath slapped the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. Green light flashed again, and Ben Tennyson stood where the tiger alien had been a moment before. And that's how we do things in my universe, Ben grinned, brushing dust from his jacket. Spider-Man stared, his mask's eyes widening slightly. You're just a regular teenager. Ben Tennyson, he introduced himself, extending a hand. And yeah, when I'm not using the Omnitrix. Their introduction was cut short by the sound of approaching sirens, different from the police already on scene. That's S.H.I.E.L.D., Spider-Man said urgently. Government Super People Response Team. They're probably picking up whatever energy signature brought you here, plus your transformation. We should go, they ask way too many questions. Ben nodded. The last thing he needed was to be detained by this world's authorities before figuring out how to get home. Lead the way. Spider-Man shot a web upward. Can any of your aliens swing? Ben smiled, already activating the Omnitrix again. I've got something better. Another flash of green light, and in Ben's place stood a blue moth-like alien with large wings and antennae. Big Chill, he whispered in a raspy voice. Race you to the top. Big Chill turned intangible, flying straight through the building beside them while Spider-Man swung upward along its exterior. They reached the roof simultaneously. Okay, that was cool, Spider-Man admitted. Intangibility, flight, and what else? Big Chill demonstrated by breathing a freezing vapor that turned a small water puddle to ice instantly. Cryokinesis, he explained. Among other tricks. And you've got how many of these transformations? Over 70, Big Chill answered. Though the Omnitrix is only accessing about 20 right now after whatever happened during the dimensional jump. Spider-Man whistled. That's, wow. And I thought having spider powers was cool. Below them, black SUVs with the SHIELD logo pulled up. Agents in tactical gear began scanning the area. We should keep moving, Spider-Man suggested. I know someone who might be able to help with your dimension problem, but it's across town. Big Chill nodded, his wings folding around him like a cloak. After you, Webhead. They traveled across the New York skyline, Big Chill flying alongside Spider-Man as he swung between buildings. Ben couldn't help but feel a surreal thrill. He was literally universe hopping with Spider-Man, a character he'd read about in comics and seen in movies. So in your universe, I'm fictional? Spider-Man asked during a brief rest on a water tower. Like, completely made up. Big Chill nodded. Comics, movies, TV shows. You're pretty popular, actually. That's weirdly flattering and existentially terrifying at the same time. Spider-Man shook his head. Do they get stuff right at least? Please tell me I'm not portrayed as some brooding, dark vigilante. Depends on the version, but mostly you're the friendly neighborhood hero with the quips. Though there was this one film where you did this weird dance down the street. I don't want to know, Spider-Man interrupted, holding up a hand. Some things are better left mysteries across the multiverse. Big Chill chuckled, a sound like ice cracking. Multiverse theory is something I've dealt with before, but never quite like this. In my world, I've traveled to alternate timelines, but those were always variations of my own universe. This is different, a completely separate reality where my world exists only as fiction. And vice versa, Spider-Man added. Though now I'm wondering if there's a comic about this exact meeting happening somewhere. Their conversation was interrupted by the Omnitrix symbol on Big Chill's chest flashing red. Energy reserves depleting, Big Chill explained. The dimensional travel must have affected the Omnitrix's power source. A flash of red light later, Ben Tennyson sat on the water tower beside Spider-Man. The Omnitrix dial glowed a dull green, occasionally flickering. How long until you can transform again? Spider-Man asked. Ben examined the device. Hard to say. Normally it would recharge in a few minutes, but it's acting weird here. Different universal constants, maybe? Different background radiation? You sound pretty scientific for a teenager who turns into aliens. Ben shrugged. When your cousin is a magic-wielding genius and your grandpa is basically an intergalactic police officer, you pick things up. Spider-Man's head suddenly jerked to the side. We've got company. Following his gaze, Ben spotted what looked like a swirling circle of golden sparks forming in midair about 20 feet away. The circle expanded into a portal, and through it stepped a man in elaborate blue robes with a high red collar. A pendant hung at his chest, glowing with ethereal light. Dr. Strange, Spider-Man said by way of introduction. He's the one I wanted you to meet. Though I didn't expect him to find us first. The sorcerer stepped forward, his cape billowing despite the lack of wind. Spider-Man. I sensed a dimensional incursion in the city. I assume it's related to your new friend? Yeah, this is Ben Tennyson. He kinda dropped in from another universe where we're all comic book characters. Ben, this is Dr. Stephen Strange, master of the mystic arts and protector against magical threats. Ben waved awkwardly. Hi. Nice cape. Thank you. It's sentient, Strange replied matter-of-factly, the cape lifting slightly at its corners as if acknowledging the compliment. The energy signature you're emitting is unlike anything I've encountered before. It's not mystical in nature, yet it's bending reality around you. Ben held up his wrist. It's the Omnitrix. Alien technology that lets me transform into different species. It interacted with some kind of crystal in my world, and now I'm here. Strange approached, gesturing for permission before examining the device. His fingers traced patterns in the air above it, leaving trails of golden light that formed complex symbols. Fascinating. It's creating microtears in the dimensional fabric with every transformation. Nothing catastrophic yet, but potentially problematic if left unchecked. Strange looked directly at Ben. We should continue this conversation somewhere more secure. The sanctorum would be best. Another portal opened beside them, revealing what looked like an ornate study filled with bizarre artifacts. Wait, Ben said hesitantly. I need to figure out how to get home. My friends, my family, they'll be worried. That's precisely why we're going to the sanctum, Strange explained. If anyone can help you understand what happened and how to reverse it, it would be me. Dimensional travel is something of a specialty. Spider-Man placed a reassuring hand on Ben's shoulder. Dr. Strange is the real deal. If anyone can help, it's him. Ben nodded, stepping toward the portal. Lead the way, document. The sanctorum was unlike anywhere Ben had ever been. Ancient artifacts lined the walls, books floated between shelves of their own accord, and windows seemed to look out on places that definitely weren't New York City. Nice place, Ben commented, trying to mask his awe. Very mystical. It serves its purpose, Strange replied, directing them to a sitting area. With a wave of his hand, tea appeared in delicate cups. Spider-Man, I assume you're staying. The wall crawler nodded, perching on the arm of a chair. If it's okay. I feel kind of responsible since I found him first. Your concern is appreciated, though unnecessary. Strange turned his attention to Ben. Now, young Mr. Tennyson, tell me everything about how you arrived here. Ben recounted the events at the warehouse, describing the purple crystal device and how it had interacted with the Omnitrix. As he spoke, Strange created glowing images in the air, visualizing the events Ben described. And the Omnitrix itself, where did it come from? Strange asked. It was created by a Galvan named Asmith, the smartest being in my universe. It contains DNA samples from thousands of alien species. It was originally meant as a tool for understanding, but I use it to help people. Ben activated the device, showing the holographic display of alien silhouettes. Though right now it's only accessing a fraction of its normal forms. Strange nodded thoughtfully. The device passed through the dimensional barrier intact, but its connection to its original universe has been severed. It's adapting to our universal constants, but the process isn't complete. Can you send me back? Ben asked directly. Strange hesitated, which Ben immediately recognized as a bad sign. It's complicated. The dimensional boundaries aren't simply walls to be passed through. They're complex energy fields that maintain the separation between realities. Whatever transported you here created a temporary tunnel, but that tunnel has collapsed. So I'm stuck here. Ben felt a chill run through him. Not necessarily. But creating a new passage requires understanding exactly where you came from and having an anchor in that reality. Without those coordinates, any attempt could send you to the wrong universe entirely. Strange gestured to the Omnitrix. Your device might hold the key. It appears to have recorded data from the transition. The Omnitrix suddenly glowed brighter, its voice activating, interdimensional coordinates partially recovered. Warning, dimensional instability detected within 500 meters. Strange was on his feet instantly. Something's coming through. A violent tremor shook the sanctum, books falling from shelves and artifacts rattling on their stands. The air in the center of the room seemed to warp and stretch before tearing open in a purple-rimmed rift similar to the one that had brought Ben to this world. Through the opening stepped a tall, pale figure with piercing red eyes and long white hair. He wore what looked like hunting gear, dark and form-fitting, with tribal markings across his face. The Omnitrix signature, the figure hissed, his voice unnaturally deep. I found it at last. Strange moved in front of Ben, mystical shields forming around his hands. Morlun. I thought you were banished from this dimension. The barriers are weakening, sorcerer. And this boy's device has created the perfect entry point. Morlun's red eyes fixed on Ben. You don't belong here, child. And that power you carry, it calls to me. Spider-Man tensed visibly. Ben, stay back. This guy's bad news, he feeds on the energy of beings connected to the multiverse's power. Specifically, spider totems like me, but apparently he's branching out. Ben didn't need to be told twice. The Omnitrix was still recharging, its hourglass symbol pulsing slowly as it regained power. Without his transformations, he'd be helpless against whatever this Morlun was. Strange attacked first, sending bands of golden energy to ensnare the intruder. Morlun shrugged them off with frightening ease, moving with blinding speed towards Spider-Man, the spider first, then the boy, he growled, clawed hands reaching out. Spider-Man narrowly dodged, flipping away while firing webs that Morlun tore through like paper. Yeah, no thanks. Not interested in being dinner twice. Ben watched in horror as Morlun knocked Strange aside with casual strength before pursuing Spider-Man around the sanctum. The web's linger was fast, but Morlun seemed to anticipate his movements, cutting off escape routes and driving him into corners. Come on, Ben urged the Omnitrix, which continued its slow recharge. I need you now. As if responding to his desperation, the device suddenly chimed, the hourglass glowing bright green once more. Omnitrix energy reserves at 40%. Limited transformation duration available. That would have to be enough. Ben activated the device, cycling through the available aliens. Many were still grayed out, but one caught his eye, one that might stand a chance against this predator. Going hero. Ben slammed the dial down. The transformation wrapped him in green light, his form growing larger, more crystalline. When it finished, he stood as a purple crystalline humanoid with sharp edges and a crystalline head. Chroma stone. Ben announced. The energy-absorbing alien might be his best bet against Morlun's attacks. Morlun paused his pursuit of Spider-Man, turning to face the new threat. Interesting. Your energy signature just changed. What exactly are you, boy? Someone who's really tired of being called boy, Chromastone replied, hands glowing with stored ultraviolet energy. And someone who's sending you back where you came from. Chromastone fired a multicolored energy beam that struck Morlun squarely in the chest, driving him back several feet. The predator snarled, more annoyed than hurt. Energy-based attacks. You're making this too easy. Morlun charged forward, moving faster than Chromastone anticipated. A crystalline hand shot up just in time to catch Morlun's fist. The impact sent vibrations through Chromastone's body, but his crystalline form absorbed the kinetic energy, converting it to power he could use. Thanks for the boost, Chromastone grunted, releasing the stored energy in an explosive burst that sent Morlun crashing into a bookshelf. Spider-Man rejoined the fight, webbing Morlun's feet to the floor. Nice move. He usually shrugs off my strongest hits. Energy absorption, Chromastone explained. The stronger he hits, the more power I get to throw back. Strange had recovered, his hands weaving complex patterns as he chanted in an ancient language. The floor beneath Morlun began to glow with arcane symbols. Keep him occupied. Strange called. I'm preparing a banishment spell. Morlun broke free of the webbing, his expression darkening from interest to rage. Enough games. He lunged at Chromastone with renewed ferocity. The crystalline alien met him head-on, absorbing punch after punch while redirecting the energy into counterattacks. Spider-Man provided support, using webs to trip and distract Morlun whenever possible. But Chromastone could feel the Omnitrix's power draining faster than normal. The symbol on his chest began to blink, warning of imminent timeout. Whatever you're doing, Strange, hurry it up. Chromastone called, barely dodging a swipe that would have taken his head off. Almost there. The sorcerer's hands moved faster, the symbols on the floor glowing brighter. Morlun sensed what was happening and shifted his attack toward Strange. No. He roared, abandoning his assault on Chromastone to charge the sorcerer. Spider-Man intercepted him with a desperate tackle, but was swatted aside like a fly. Chromastone fired another energy beam, but Morlun was already too close to Strange. In that crucial moment, the Omnitrix timed out. The green light enveloped Chromastone, transforming him back to Ben just as Morlun reached Strange. The sorcerer managed to complete his spell, the arcane circle erupting in blinding light that engulfed both him and Morlun. When the light faded, Morlun was gone, but so was Dr. Strange. No. Spider-Man scrambled to his feet. Where did they go? The sanctum grew unnaturally quiet. Where the spell circle had been, only scorch marks remained on the ancient wooden floor. I don't know, Ben admitted, staring at the empty space. The spell was supposed to banish Morlun, but if Strange was in physical contact when it activated. The implications hung heavy in the air. They'd lost their most knowledgeable ally in dimensional matters, and Ben was no closer to finding a way home. Worse, he now had a multiversal predator interested in the Omnitrix's energy. Spider-Man approached the scorch marks, examining them closely. Strange is resourceful. If anyone can find their way back from wherever they went, it's him. I hope you're right. Ben checked the Omnitrix, which had reverted to its recharging state, the hourglass dimly lit. But until then, we're on our own against whatever that thing was. Morlun is a multiversal vampire, basically. He hunts beings connected to cosmic power sources, usually spider totems like me, but your Omnitrix must have caught his attention. Great, Ben sighed. Dimensional vampire with super strength. Just what I needed today. Spider-Man's shoulders slumped slightly. I'm sorry I got you into this mess. If I'd known Morlun was active again. Hey, you didn't create the rift that brought me here, Ben countered. And you didn't summon tall, pale, and hungry. We're in this together now. Right. Spider-Man straightened up. And if Strange is temporarily out of the picture, I know someone else who might be able to help. He's not exactly a dimensional expert, but when it comes to advanced technology. Who? Tony Stark. Iron Man. If anyone can help figure out how your Omnitrix works and how to use it to get you home, it's him. Ben's eyes widened. Iron Man. Seriously? This day just keeps getting weirder. He glanced at the Omnitrix, which was slowly recharging. Lead the way. But maybe we should wait until I can transform again. Safer to travel with alien backup. Spider-Man nodded, moving to examine some of the Sanctum's books while they waited. So back in your universe, what's it like being a shape-shifting superhero? Ben leaned against a table, the reality of his situation starting to sink in. Honestly? Sometimes amazing, sometimes terrifying. I've been doing this since I was 10, found the Omnitrix during summer vacation. It was just supposed to be this cool alien tech I could play with, but it turned into a responsibility. Saving the world became like a weekend job. I know that feeling, Spider-Man said quietly. The whole, great power, great responsibility, thing isn't just a catchy motto when you're living it. Exactly. Ben found himself appreciating the common ground. Most kids my age are worried about college applications. I'm worried about alien invasions and interdimensional travel. Speaking of which, Spider-Man gestured to the Omnitrix, which had begun glowing brighter. Looks like your watch is charged up again. Ready to meet Iron Man? Ben nodded, activating the device. Let's fly. Stark Tower dominated the New York skyline, its distinctive architecture immediately recognizable to Ben from comics and movies. As they approached, Ben in the form of Jet Ray, a red manta ray-like alien capable of high-speed flight, and Spider-Man swinging alongside, Ben couldn't help feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. How exactly do we get in? Jet Ray asked, his nasally voice carrying on the wind. I doubt Iron Man takes walk-ins. I've got clearance, Spider-Man replied, leading them toward a specific landing pad high on the building. Tony and I have worked together enough times that Friday, his AI system, knows me. They touched down on the platform, jet ray transforming back to Ben in a flash of green light. Almost immediately, a female voice spoke from hidden speakers. "Welcome back, Spider-Man. I see you've brought an unidentified guest with unusual energy readings." "Hey Friday," Spider-Man greeted. "This is Ben Tennyson. Well, it's complicated. Is Tony available? It's kind of important. Mr. Stark is currently in his workshop. He asks if this is world-ending important or just regular superhero important." Spider-Man glanced at Ben. Considering we're dealing with dimensional rifts, Morlun on the loose, and Doctor Strange missing in action, definitely leaning toward world-ending. The doors slid open. "In that case, please proceed to the workshop. Mr. Stark says, and I quote, 'This better not be like the time you brought that alien goo that tried to eat my suits.'" Ben raised an eyebrow at Spider-Man. "Alien goo? Long story involving symbiotes. I'll tell you later." Spider-Man led the way into the building. The interior of Stark Tower was as impressive as the exterior, sleek, modern, with technology that seemed advanced even to Ben, who was used to alien tech. Automated systems responded to their presence, lights adjusting and doors opening as they approached. They descended in a glass elevator to what appeared to be Tony Stark's personal workshop. The space was filled with holographic displays, partially assembled Iron Man suits, and various projects in different stages of completion. In the center of it all stood Tony Stark himself, manipulating a 3D hologram with casual gestures. He turned as they entered, his expression curious but guarded. "Spider-Man. New friend." Tony dismissed the hologram with a flick of his wrist. "Friday says you're giving off energy readings that shouldn't exist in this universe. Care to explain before I call what's left of the Avengers?" "Mr. Stark," Ben stepped forward, deciding directness was best. "I'm Ben Tennyson. I'm from another dimension where this," he held up his wrist, displaying the Omnitrix, "is the most powerful device in the universe. It lets me transform into different alien species." Tony's eyebrows rose slightly. "That's actually one of the more straightforward explanations I've heard lately." He approached, examining the Omnitrix without touching it. "Friday, full spectrum analysis. Scanning," the AI responded. Moments later, holographic displays appeared, showing various readings of the Omnitrix's energy signature. "Analysis incomplete. Device contains technology operating on principles outside current scientific understanding." "That's a first," Tony muttered, genuinely intrigued. "Friday doesn't say that often." He looked directly at Ben. "So, dimension hopper with alien transformation tech. What brings you to our neck of the multiverse?" Spider-Man jumped in. "It wasn't intentional. He got pulled here through some kind of rift. We went to Doctor Strange for help, but then Morlun showed up." "Morlun?" Tony's demeanor changed instantly, tension evident in his posture. "The same Morlun who nearly killed you?" "Twice. The very same. He was after Ben, or more specifically, the Omnitrix's energy. Strange tried to banish him but got caught in his own spell. They both vanished." Tony rubbed his face. "Great. Dimensional vampire on the loose, wizard missing in action, and a kid with universe-jumping tech. Just another Tuesday." He focused on Ben again. "You said this thing lets you transform. Into what exactly?" Ben activated the Omnitrix, displaying the holographic interface. "Different aliens. Each with unique abilities. Right now I can only access about 20 of my usual forms because of whatever happened during the dimensional jump." "Show me," Tony said, curiosity overriding caution. Ben selected a form and pressed down the dial. Green light enveloped him, reshaping his DNA. When it faded, a small white alien with large green eyes stood in his place. "Gray matter," Ben said in a high-pitched voice. "Galvan form. Enhanced intelligence and problem-solving capabilities. Tony didn't bother hiding his amazement. That's impressive. Complete biological transformation at the cellular level, instantaneously. He circled the diminutive alien. And your intelligence is enhanced in this form? Significantly, gray matter confirmed. In this form, I can comprehend mathematical equations and technological principles far beyond human capability. My home dimension's creator of the Omnitrix, Azimuth, is a Galvan, essentially this species. So you've got a super genius form, Tony mused. Convenient for figuring out how to get you home. Gray matter nodded. Unfortunately, the transformation is temporary, and the Omnitrix's power has been affected by the dimensional transit. He touched the Omnitrix symbol on his back, reverting to human form. Even with gray matter's intelligence, I'd need equipment and resources I don't have access to. Well, resources happen to be something I've got in abundance. Tony gestured around the workshop. If we're going to figure out how to get you home, and deal with Morlun before he starts snacking on reality again, this is the place to do it. Ben felt a wave of relief. Between Spider-Man's street-level heroics and Iron Man's technological genius, he might actually have a chance of getting back to his own universe. There's something else, Spider-Man added. The Omnitrix seems to be causing micro-tears in dimensional fabric when Ben transforms. That's what Strange said before Morlun showed up. Tony frowned. That could be problematic. If those tears grow larger. He turned to a workstation, hands flying across holographic interfaces. Friday, set up a containment field. I want to monitor the dimensional energy when the kid transforms. Containment field active, boss. Tony gestured to Ben. Let's see another transformation. Something different this time. Ben nodded, activating the Omnitrix again. He selected a form and transformed in a flash of green light. Where Ben had stood moments before, there was now a humanoid plant creature with a flame-patterned head. Swampfire, he announced, his voice deeper and raspy. Plant-based physiology with regeneration and pyrokinesis. Friday's voice interrupted, boss, I'm detecting quantum fluctuations consistent with dimensional instability. Microfissures are forming around the subject. Tony studied the readings, his expression growing more serious. The watch isn't just changing your DNA, it's briefly connecting to your home dimension to access the genetic template. Each transformation is punching a tiny hole in reality. Is that dangerous? Swampfire asked, concerned. One transformation? No. Dozens over time. Potentially catastrophic. Tony expanded a holographic model showing the energy patterns. Each microtear eventually repairs itself, but they're healing slower each time. If this continues, the barriers between dimensions could collapse entirely, Spider-Man finished grimly. Swampfire hit the Omnitrix symbol, changing back to Ben. So not only am I stuck here, but using the Omnitrix could damage both our universes? Not necessarily, Tony countered, already deep in problem-solving mode. If we can stabilize the dimensional energy when you transform, maybe redirect it. Friday, pull up the quantum tunnel schematics from the PIM particle research. Accessing, boss. Ben watched as complex diagrams appeared around Tony. You think you can fix it? Fix might be optimistic. Patch temporarily is more realistic. Tony manipulated the schematics, making rapid adjustments. I need to build something that can contain the dimensional energy discharge when you transform, maybe even store it for use later. For getting me home, Ben realized. Exactly. Each transformation leaks a little energy from your universe. If we capture enough of it, we might be able to create a stable portal. Tony looked up from his work. But we need to work fast. Those microtears are like breadcrumbs for beings like Morlun. And if Strange doesn't come back soon. Spider-Man let the implication hang. Then we're the last line of defense against a multiversal vampire with a taste for superpowers, Tony concluded. No pressure. The gravity of the situation settled over them. Ben stared at the Omnitrix, the device that had defined his life for years now potentially threatening two universes. I should stop transforming until we have a solution, he suggested reluctantly. Tony shook his head. Bad idea. From what Spider-Man's told me about Morlun, you'll need those powers if he comes back. And he will come back. He pulled up another display. Friday, fabricate a quantum energy containment bracelet based on design Delta 7. Priority override. Fabrication initiated. Estimated completion time, 3 hours. Tony turned to Ben. That should help minimize the dimensional leakage when you transform. It won't solve the problem completely, but it'll buy us time. What can I do until then? Ben asked. Rest, Tony suggested. Eat something. From the looks of it, you've had a hell of a day. Friday will show you to a guest room. His expression softened slightly. And kid? We'll figure this out. Dimensional crisis is Tuesday, remember? By Friday we're usually back to normal. Ben managed a smile. Thanks, Mr. Stark. Tony, he corrected. Mr. Stark was my father, and he was a lot less cool about aliens. As Friday guided Ben from the workshop, he caught a glimpse of Tony and Spider-Man already deep in discussion, holographic displays showing various readings from the Omnitrix. For the first time since arriving in this universe, Ben felt a spark of hope. With heroes like these on his side, maybe, just maybe, he'd find his way home. The guest room at Stark Tower was more luxurious than any hotel Ben had ever stayed in. After a shower and a meal delivered by one of Tony's service robots, he found himself standing at the window, gazing out at the New York skyline. This wasn't his New York. In his world, New York existed, but it wasn't filled with superheroes and villains battling across rooftops. His world had its own protectors, the plumbers, other Omnitrix wielders like his cousin Gwen and her boyfriend Kevin. His family would be worried sick by now. Had they tracked the energy signature of his disappearance? Were they searching different dimensions for him? Paradox, the time-traveling professor who occasionally helped Ben's team, might notice his absence from the time stream. Ben's thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. Come in, he called, turning from the window. Spider-Man entered, now without his mask. Ben recognized him from the comics and movies immediately, Peter Parker, with his tousled brown hair and earnest expression. Thought you might want an update, Peter said, closing the door behind him. Tony's making progress on the containment device. Should be ready in about an hour. He hesitated. I also figured you might want someone to talk to. Dimensional displacement can be lonely. Ben smiled gratefully. Thanks. And yeah, it is pretty weird being in a world where you're supposed to be fictional. The feeling's mutual, Peter replied, leaning against the wall. So, back in your universe, what's your story? I'm guessing with a device like the Omnitrix, you're not just your average teenager. Far from it, Ben admitted. I found the Omnitrix when I was 10, during summer vacation with my grandpa and cousin. It was supposed to be sent to my grandpa, he's part of an intergalactic police force called the Plumbers, but I got to it first. He held up his wrist, the device now dormant. It attached itself to me, and I've been using it to fight aliens, monsters, and interdimensional threats ever since. Peter nodded appreciatively. 9 years of superhero work. That's impressive. I've only been Spider-Man for about 6 years. It hasn't always been easy, Ben continued. There've been times when I lost the Omnitrix, or it got damaged, or someone tried to steal it. Times when I wondered if I was worthy of it. The classic hero's journey, Peter observed. I get that. The whole power and responsibility thing can be overwhelming sometimes. Ben looked directly at Peter. How do you deal with it? Balancing normal life with this? He gestured vaguely at Peter's Spider-Man suit. Peter laughed softly. Badly, most of the time. I've missed dates, failed classes, lost jobs. My personal life is basically a disaster area. But the people I've saved, the differences I've made, that makes it worthwhile. He paused. What about you? Got anyone special back home worrying about you? Ben's thoughts turned to Julie, his on-again, off-again girlfriend, and to Kai, the complicated relationship that never quite solidified. It's complicated. Hard to maintain a relationship when aliens might invade during dinner. Preaching to the choir, Peter agreed. My last 3 relationships ended because I had to bail to stop a supervillain. Hard to explain that without revealing the whole spider thing. They shared a moment of understanding, 2 young heroes from different universes connected by similar struggles. So, Ben changed the subject. Any word on Doctor Strange? Peter's expression grew more serious. Nothing yet. Tony's got Friday monitoring for any mystical energy signatures that might indicate his return. The sanctum's still standing, which is a good sign. It tends to react when something happens to its master. And Morlun? No sightings, which is both good and bad. Good because he's not actively hunting us, bad because we don't know what he's planning. Ben nodded, processing this information. I've faced my share of powerful enemies, but Morlun seems different. The way he looked at the Omnitrix. He shuddered slightly. Like it was food. That's essentially what it is to him, Peter explained. Morlun feeds on the life force of beings connected to cosmic powers. In my case, it's the spider essence that gives me my abilities. In your case, it's probably the Omnitrix's connection to all those alien DNA samples and its dimensional properties. Before Ben could respond, Friday's voice came through the room speakers. Mr. Parker, boss requests your presence in the workshop. The containment device is ready for testing. Peter stood up, reaching for his mask. That's our cue. Ready to see if Tony Stark can stabilize alien transformation technology from another dimension? Ben smiled, standing up as well. After everything I've seen today, I'm ready to believe anything's possible. Back in the workshop, Tony had assembled what looked like a high-tech bracelet. It was sleek, silver with blue energy lines running through it, designed to fit just above the Omnitrix on Ben's arm. It's not my finest work aesthetically, Tony admitted as Ben examined it, but function over form in this case. The containment field should capture most of the dimensional energy discharge when you transform, storing it here. He pointed to small blue chambers within the bracelet. And this will prevent the microtears? Ben asked, slipping the device onto his arm. Reduce, not prevent entirely. Think of it like a bandage on a wound that keeps reopening. It won't heal the problem, but it'll keep things from getting worse while we work on a permanent solution. Tony stepped back, gesturing to a marked area in the center of the workshop. Stand there for the test. Friday's going to monitor everything down to the quantum level. Ben moved to the designated spot, the containment bracelet feeling strangely light despite its bulky appearance. Any specific alien I should transform into? Something with a significant energy output, Tony suggested. Really put this thing through its paces. Ben nodded, activating the Omnitrix. He scrolled through the available forms before selecting one. Going hero. The green light enveloped him as his DNA reconfigured. When it faded, a humanoid composed of pure energy stood in Ben's place, contained within a black and white suit with green lines. NRG, the transformation announced in a thick Eastern European accent. Energy-based life form. Tony and Peter watched intently as holographic displays monitored the transformation process. The containment bracelet glowed blue as it absorbed the dimensional energy discharge, the microtears visibly smaller on Friday's scans. It's working, Tony confirmed, examining the readings. Energy leakage reduced by approximately 78%. Not perfect, but much better than before. NRG examined his hands, which glowed with radioactive energy. It feels different somehow. The transformation seems, I don't know, cleaner. The bracelet is filtering some of the dimensional static, Tony explained. Think of it like watching TV with better reception. NRG touched the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, reverting to Ben. The containment bracelet pulsed briefly as it processed the remaining energy from the transformation. So this buys us time, Ben said, looking at the device on his arm. What's the next step? Tony brought up a new holographic display, this one showing what looked like a complex portal design. We use the energy we collect to power this, a modified quantum tunnel that should be able to create a stable passage back to your dimension. How long will that take to build? With the resources I have? A few days at most. Tony manipulated the display, highlighting various components. The tricky part will be targeting the right universe. There are infinite dimensions out there, and we need to find your specific one. The Omnitrix might help with that, Ben suggested. It's still trying to connect to its home dimension. If we could boost that signal somehow. Tony's eyes lit up with the thrill of a new challenge. Kid, I like the way you think. Friday, run a deep scan on the Omnitrix's background communication attempts. Scanning. Detecting periodic signal bursts on an unknown frequency spectrum. There we go, Tony said triumphantly. Your watch is like a lost cell phone trying to find a tower. We just need to amplify that signal and use it as a homing beacon. Peter, who had been monitoring a different screen, suddenly straightened. Guys? We might have a problem. He gestured to a news feed showing chaotic scenes from downtown Manhattan. What appeared to be robotic drones were attacking civilians, their design unlike anything from this world. Those aren't from around here, Ben said grimly, recognizing the technology. Those are drones from my universe, they belong to a warlord named Vilgax. Vilgax? Tony asked. Friend of yours? More like my archenemy. He's been trying to take the Omnitrix from me for years. Ben's expression hardened. He must have followed me through the rift somehow. Tony was already activating his Iron Man armor, the nanites flowing over his body to form the familiar red and gold suit. Well, he picked the wrong universe to invade. Spider-Man, you up for another round? Peter pulled his mask back on. Always. Might be nice to fight something other than Morlun for a change. Ben activated the Omnitrix, the containment bracelet glowing in anticipation. I'll lead, I know how these drones operate. Let's get up to the roof. We need to destroy them quickly before they hurt anyone. As they headed toward the landing pad, Ben couldn't help wondering if his situation had just become significantly more complicated. If Vilgax was here, the danger had increased exponentially, not just to him, but to this entire universe. The day had started with him falling through dimensions. Now he was heading into battle alongside Iron Man and Spider-Man against one of his greatest enemies. Just another day in the life of Ben 10, he thought, preparing to transform once more. Except this time, in a whole new universe. Chapter 2, Heroes Converge. The drones swarmed over Manhattan like mechanical locusts, their metallic bodies reflecting the afternoon sunlight as they fired indiscriminately at buildings, vehicles, and terrified civilians. Ben recognized them instantly, Vilgax's hunter-seekers, designed to locate and retrieve the Omnitrix at any cost. Those things have bioscanners, Ben explained as he, Spider-Man, and Iron Man rocketed toward the chaos. Ben had transformed into Astrodactyl, a pterodactyl-like alien with energy wings and jet propulsion. They're looking for the Omnitrix's energy signature. So basically, they're looking for you, Iron Man concluded, his repulsors leaving light trails as he flew alongside. Fantastic. Your ex found your new address. Spider-Man swung between skyscrapers, keeping pace with his flying companions. Please tell me these things have an off switch. The command module, Astrodactyl squawked, his voice raspy and bird-like. There's always a central drone controlling the others. Take it out, and the rest go dormant. Friday, scan for anomalous command signals, Tony ordered as they approached the swarm. Scanning. Detecting a concentrated transmission source approximately half a mile northeast of your position. Iron Man banked right. I'll hit the source. You two keep the drones busy. On it. Astrodactyl created energy whips from his wrists, lashing out at the nearest drones. The quantum containment bracelet Tony had built glowed blue with each energy discharge, capturing the dimensional bleed-over. Spider-Man launched himself into the center of a drone cluster, webbing 3 together before kicking a 4th into a wall. These things are tough. Vilgax doesn't mess around, Astrodactyl replied, blasting another with a mouth beam. He's conquered 10 worlds. These are just his scouts. The battle spread across several city blocks as more drones emerged from hidden positions. Astrodactyl swooped low over a group of trapped civilians, creating an energy shield as Spider-Man swung down to evacuate them. Go. Get to the subway. Spider-Man directed, using his webs to create barriers against drone attacks. A massive explosion rocked the area as Iron Man destroyed what appeared to be the command module. The remaining drones faltered momentarily, but instead of shutting down, they switched to a secondary protocol. That's not right, Astrodactyl muttered. They should be deactivating. The drones regrouped and formed a defensive perimeter around a building several blocks away. Iron Man rejoined them, his armor showing minor battle damage. Found the command module and turned it into scrap, he reported. But these things aren't following the usual rules. Astrodactyl narrowed his eyes. Because they're not just hunting the Omnitrix anymore. They've found something else. A sudden flash of green light signaled his transformation back to human form. The containment bracelet hummed as it processed the dimensional energy. Perfect timing, Ben grumbled, checking the Omnitrix as it began its recharge cycle. I've got you, Spider-Man said, swinging close and grabbing Ben around the waist. What's our play? Ben pointed toward the building the drones were protecting. We need to see what they found. In my universe, Vilgax's drones only form defensive patterns around something valuable. Or dangerous, Tony added, already scanning the structure. Friday's picking up energy readings consistent with dimensional distortion. Similar to what happened when you arrived. Another visitor from my universe? Ben wondered. Only one way to find out. Iron Man blasted forward, drawing drone fire while Spider-Man carried Ben in a wide arc around the perimeter. They landed on a rooftop opposite the target building. From this vantage point, they could see the drones creating a spherical defense around what appeared to be a tear in reality, a floating, purplish rift similar to the one that had brought Ben to this dimension. That doesn't look stable, Spider-Man observed. Ben checked the Omnitrix, still recharging. We need to close it before anything else comes through. Too late. The rift pulsed violently, expanding to twice its previous size. Through the distortion stepped a figure Ben had hoped never to see in this universe, a tall, squid-faced humanoid in black and red armor, cybernetic enhancements visible across his body. Vilgax, Ben breathed, instinctively taking a step back. The alien warlord surveyed his surroundings, red eyes narrowing as his drones gathered around him protectively. When he spoke, his voice carried across the distance, deep and menacing. Tennyson. I know you're here. The Omnitrix's signal is unmistakable, even across dimensions. Friend of yours? Spider-Man whispered. More like the guy who's been trying to cut off my arm to get the Omnitrix since I was 10, Ben replied grimly. Iron Man landed beside them. Charming. Friday's analyzing him now. Cybernetically enhanced exoskeleton, weapons systems far beyond Earth tech, and biological readings that definitely aren't from around here. We need to contain this, Ben said. Vilgax in my universe is bad enough. Here, with no one who knows how to fight him. The Omnitrix suddenly chimed, its faceplate glowing bright green again. Transformation capability restored. Ben didn't hesitate. Time to fight fire with fire. He activated the device, cycling through his available transformations before selecting one. Going hero. The green light enveloped him, transforming him into a massive, four-armed red-skinned alien with 4 yellow eyes and impressive musculature. 4 arms. Ben flexed his multiple limbs. Let's see how Vilgax likes a direct approach. Before Spider-Man or Iron Man could suggest a plan, 4 arms leaped from the rooftop, sailing through the air toward his nemesis. The drones immediately opened fire, but 4 arms batted them aside like insects, his trajectory bringing him straight to Vilgax. Tennyson. Vilgax snarled, recognizing the Tetraman form. I've tracked you across realities. 4 arms landed with an impact that cracked the pavement. Didn't get the hint after the first dozen times I beat you. Vilgax's cybernetic arm transformed into a blade. This universe has no plumbers, no azimuth, no allies to save you. Here, the Omnitrix will finally be mine. The two collided with earth-shaking force, 4 arms 4 hands grabbing Vilgax's arms while the warlord pushed back with enhanced strength. They were locked in a stalemate when Iron Man and Spider-Man joined the fray, attacking the remaining drones. Ben, we've got the small fry. Iron Man called, blasting drones with precision repulsor shots. Just keep Calamari Face busy. Vilgax growled at the intervention. More insects to crush. With a sudden surge of strength, he broke 4 arms' grip and delivered a devastating punch that sent the 4-armed alien flying into a parked truck. 4 arms shook off the impact, climbing from the wreckage. Still hitting like a girl, Vilgax. The taunt had its intended effect. Vilgax charged forward, abandoning strategic thinking for raw aggression. 4 arms sidestepped at the last moment, using the warlord's momentum against him to slam him into the ground. You're in my world now, Vilgax, 4 arms declared, pressing his advantage with a barrage of punches. And I've got new friends. As if on cue, Spider-Man swung in, webbing Vilgax's legs while Iron Man fired a unibeam directly at the warlord's chest armor. The combined attack drove Vilgax back, his cybernetic components smoking from the energy discharge. But Vilgax was far from defeated. With a roar of frustration, he activated hidden weaponry within his armor. Missiles launched from his shoulders, forcing Iron Man to intercept them before they could reach civilian areas. Energy blasts from his gauntlets kept Spider-Man dodging frantically. And a hidden force field generator repelled 4 arms' next attack. You fight well together, Vilgax observed, his tactical mind assessing the situation. But you lack experience against my kind. He pressed a control on his armor, and the remaining drones suddenly released a high-frequency sonic pulse. The sound was debilitating to Spider-Man, whose enhanced senses made him particularly vulnerable. Iron Man's systems temporarily freezed, his armor locking up momentarily. Even 4 arms winced at the painful frequency. Vilgax seized the opportunity, charging forward and grabbing 4 arms by the throat. The Omnitrix, Tennyson. Now. The red alien struggled against the iron grip. Never. A blur of motion interrupted the standoff, something moving too fast for the eye to follow struck Vilgax repeatedly, forcing him to release 4 arms. The blur resolved into a young man with silver hair, wearing a blue and silver suit with a lightning motif. You looked like you could use a hand, the newcomer said, his Eastern European accent distinct. Or 4, in your case. Iron Man recovered, hovering nearby. Quicksilver. Didn't expect to see you. Wanda sensed the dimensional disturbance, Quicksilver explained, referring to his twin sister. The Avengers are responding. As if summoned by his words, more heroes arrived on the scene. A red-skinned figure phased through a nearby building, a golden cape flowing behind him. A woman in a red costume descended from the sky, crimson energy flowing from her hands. And a man with a bow and a quiver full of specialized arrows took position on a nearby rooftop. Vision, Scarlet Witch, Hawkeye, Iron Man identified them for Ben's benefit. Vilgax assessed the new arrivals with cold calculation. More heroes. This universe is infested with them. He tapped his gauntlet, and the remaining drones gathered around him defensively. A tactical withdrawal seems prudent. No, you don't. Forearms lunged forward, but Vilgax had already activated another device. A swirling portal opened behind him, not back to Ben's universe, but to somewhere else in this world. We will meet again, Tennyson, Vilgax promised. And next time, I won't be unprepared for this world's defenders. He stepped backward into the portal, his drones following before the rift closed completely. Forearms slammed his fists into the ground in frustration. He got away. But we know he's here now, Iron Man said. And we've got friends. He gestured to the assembled heroes, who approached cautiously, eyeing the red four-armed alien with varying degrees of curiosity and suspicion. The Omnitrix symbol on forearm's shoulder beeped, and a flash of green light returned Ben to human form. The gathered heroes tensed momentarily at the transformation. Everyone, meet Ben Tennyson, Iron Man announced. Interdimensional visitor with the ability to transform into various aliens. Ben, meet some of the Avengers. The what now? Ben asked, the name unfamiliar to him. Earth's mightiest heroes, Spider-Man supplied. Basically, this world's version of a superhero team. Vision approached, studying Ben with analytical interest. Fascinating. The energy signature you emit is unlike anything in our database. Your transformation technology rewrites molecular structure instantaneously. Yeah, it's called the Omnitrix, Ben explained, holding up his wrist. And the guy who just escaped? That's Vilgax, one of my universe's worst villains. If he's here, your world's in serious danger. Scarlet Witch stepped forward, her eyes glowing slightly red. I sense the dimensional distortions around you. They're similar to the energy I control, but foreign somehow. That's because he's not from our reality, Tony explained, his Iron Man helmet retracting to reveal his face. And according to our missing expert on all things mystical, each time Ben transforms, it creates microtears in the dimensional fabric. Which is how Vilgax tracked me here, Ben realized. And probably how he created that portal just now. Hawkeye joined the conversation, bow still in hand. So we've got an interdimensional warlord loose in our world. Tuesday's starting early this week. We should return to the compound, Vision suggested. A proper briefing would be beneficial, and I believe Ms. Maximoff and I might be able to assist with the dimensional energy analysis. Tony nodded in agreement. Good call. Plus, there's someone else there who might be particularly helpful with stabilizing Ben's transformation device. Ben raised an eyebrow questioningly. Princess Shuri of Wakanda, Tony explained. Currently visiting to discuss technological exchange. When it comes to understanding and adapting advanced tech, she makes me look like I'm playing with Tinker toys. Another super genius? Ben asked. Seems like they're everywhere in this universe. Spider-Man chuckled. You have no idea. The Avengers compound was nothing like Ben had imagined. Located upstate from New York City, the massive facility sprawled across manicured grounds, featuring state-of-the-art training areas, laboratories, and living quarters. It reminded Ben somewhat of plumber bases, but with distinctly Earth aesthetics. As they entered the main building, more heroes greeted them. A man with mechanical wings. A woman with short blonde hair who seemed to radiate power. A stern-faced man in a dark tactical suit carrying a shield with a star design. Sam Wilson, Carol Danvers, and Steve Rogers, Tony introduced them. Also known as Falcon, Captain Marvel, and Captain America. Another captain? Carol raised an eyebrow. How many are we up to now? This one's not a captain, Tony clarified. Ben here is our interdimensional visitor. And apparently, he brought company, a charming fellow named Vilgax who'd like nothing better than to remove Ben's arm to get his transformation device. Steve Rogers stepped forward, extending a hand to Ben. Welcome to our world, son. Sounds like you've had a rough day. Ben shook the offered hand, slightly starstruck despite himself. This was Captain America, a legend even in Ben's world, where Marvel was just fiction. Thanks. And yeah, interdimensional travel wasn't on my agenda today. It rarely is, Vision commented, floating nearby. The princess is waiting in Lab 3, Sam informed Tony. Said something about antiquated quantum stabilization approaches when she saw your schematics. Tony rolled his eyes. Of course she did. Ben, let's go meet the person who's about to make me feel intellectually inadequate. As they headed toward the lab section, Ben noticed Steve pull Tony aside briefly, their conversation hushed but intense. Ben caught fragments, sure we can trust, just a kid, Vilgax threat level, before they rejoined the group. The laboratory they entered was a technological paradise that would have made Azimuth himself impressed. Holographic displays filled the air, complex equipment hummed with power, and in the center of it all stood a young black woman manipulating a 3D model of what appeared to be the Omnitrix's internal structure. Princess, Tony announced their arrival. Meet our dimensional traveler. Shuri turned, her intelligent eyes immediately focusing on Ben's wrist. So this is the infamous Omnitrix. Primitive quantum entanglement principles, but elegant in execution. Primitive? Ben couldn't help feeling defensive on Azimuth's behalf. It's the most advanced piece of technology in my universe. Which says more about your universe than the device, Shuri replied with a smirk. May I? She gestured toward his wrist. Ben hesitated momentarily before extending his arm. Just be careful. It doesn't like being tampered with. Shuri examined the Omnitrix without touching it, using scanning equipment that projected detailed schematics into the air. Fascinating. It doesn't just transform your body, it temporarily rewrites your genetic code using stored DNA patterns. But the dimensional discharge is causing quantum instability. Which is why we made this, Tony added, pointing to the containment bracelet on Ben's arm. It captures about 78% of the dimensional leakage. Shuri snorted. 78%. You might as well use a coffee filter to stop a waterfall. She manipulated the holographic display, making rapid adjustments to Tony's design. We need at least 95% containment, or each transformation will continue weakening the dimensional barriers. Can you improve it? Ben asked. Can I improve it? Shuri repeated with mock offense. Can vibranium absorb kinetic energy? Can my brother pull off that ridiculous panther suit? She pressed a control, and fabrication machines began assembling components. Give me 3 hours. I'll have something that will make Stark's bracelet look like a child science project. Tony crossed his arms. I designed that in under 3 hours with limited knowledge of interdimensional physics. And it shows, Shuri replied without looking up from her work. Ben couldn't help but grin at the exchange. Shuri reminded him of Gwen, brilliant, confident, and unwilling to let anyone forget it. While the princess works her magic, Tony continued, slightly miffed, we should brief the team on Vilgax and develop a strategy for tracking him. I can help with that, Ben offered. I've been fighting Vilgax for years. I know how he thinks, how he fights, what he's after. The Omnitrix, Spider-Man supplied. More than that, Ben corrected. Vilgax wants power, any power he can get his hands on. And this universe is full of it. Infinity stones, vibranium, super soldiers, mutants, once he learns about all that, he'll want it all. Steve Rogers, who had been listening from the doorway, stepped forward. Then we need to find him before he makes alliances. The last thing we need is another Thanos-level threat. Thanos? Ben questioned. Big purple guy, wanted to wipe out half the universe, Spider-Man explained quickly. We had a whole thing about it. Sounds like Tuesday for you guys, Ben remarked. Steve almost smiled. Sometimes Wednesday too. As they exited the lab, leaving Shuri to her work, Friday's voice came over the facility's communication system. Boss, we're detecting multiple dimensional anomalies throughout the northeastern seaboard. 17 rifts have appeared in the past hour. Locations? Tony demanded. Displaying now. A holographic map appeared in the corridor, showing glowing points scattered across New York, New Jersey, and parts of Pennsylvania. They're not random, Ben realized, studying the pattern. They're forming a circle. And look, he pointed to the center of the pattern, they're all equidistant from New York City. A ritual pattern, Vision observed, floating through a wall to join them. Someone is attempting to create a large-scale dimensional event. Morlun, Spider-Man said grimly. It has to be. This is exactly his style, weakening dimensional barriers to feed on energy. Vilgax too, Ben added. He might not understand the mystical aspects, but he'd definitely exploit weakening barriers to bring more of his forces through. Steve took charge naturally, years of tactical experience evident in his voice. We need teams at each anomaly site. Tony, coordinate with S.H.I.E.L.D. for containment. Spider-Man, you and Ben focus on the Manhattan anomalies, you have the most experience with Morlun and Vilgax. Vision, Wanda, investigate the central convergence point. What about Doctor Strange? Ben asked. Any word on his whereabouts? Nothing yet, Tony replied. Wong is monitoring the sanctum for any sign of his return, but so far, silence. Ben nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. Without Strange's dimensional expertise, they were facing an uphill battle against forces that could tear reality apart. We should get moving, Spider-Man suggested. If these rifts are expanding, we don't have much time. One more thing, Tony added, turning to Ben. Until Shuri finishes the improved containment device, try to minimize transformations. Each one makes the situation worse. Got it, Ben agreed reluctantly. Emergency use only. As the heroes dispersed to their assigned tasks, Ben couldn't help feeling the weight of responsibility. He'd brought this danger to their universe, however unintentionally. Now he needed to help fix it before both their worlds suffered the consequences. Manhattan was in a state of barely controlled chaos. Police barricades surrounded the areas where dimensional rifts had appeared, keeping civilians at a safe distance. S.H.I.E.L.D. agents in tactical gear monitored the anomalies, taking readings and establishing containment protocols. Ben and Spider-Man arrived at the first Manhattan rift, a swirling purple tear in reality floating about 10 feet off the ground in Washington Square Park. The area had been evacuated, but curious onlookers gathered at the perimeter, phones recording the supernatural phenomenon. What exactly are we looking for? Ben asked as they approached the S.H.I.E.L.D. command post. Signs of manipulation, Spider-Man replied. Natural rifts just sit there being weird. If Morlun or Vilgax is using them, they'll show energy fluctuations or expansion patterns. A S.H.I.E.L.D. agent intercepted them, hand raised. Restricted area. Even for you, Spider-Man. We're working with the Avengers on this, Spider-Man explained. This is Ben Tennyson, dimensional expert. Ben raised an eyebrow at the improvised credentials but played along. Stark vouched for you, the agent conceded, stepping aside. But stay behind the sensor line. We've had objects pulled through from the other side. What kind of objects? Ben asked, suddenly alert. Nothing alive yet. Debris mostly. A few rocks, what looked like pieces of machinery. Ben frowned. That's not random. Someone's testing the rifts, seeing what can pass through. They approached the barrier cautiously. Up close, the rift was more unsettling, reality itself seemed to bend around its edges, and faint whispers emanated from within. Ben felt the Omnitrix react, its faceplate glowing brighter in proximity to the dimensional tear. It's responding to the rift, Ben observed. Like it recognizes the energy frequency. Spider-Man's mask lenses narrowed. Could you use it to close the tear? Maybe, but it would require a specific transformation. Alien X could probably seal it permanently, but... But what? Ben grimaced. Alien X is complicated. It's a celestialcipian, basically a reality-warping alien with 3 personalities that have to agree before taking any action. I can't always control it. So that's a last resort then, Spider-Man concluded. What about your other forms? Ben studied the rift thoughtfully. Feedback might be able to absorb the energy, but without somewhere to redirect it. Their discussion was interrupted by a sudden fluctuation in the rift. It pulsed violently, expanding to twice its previous size before stabilizing again. Through the distortion, Ben caught a glimpse of what looked like his home universe, the familiar skyline of Bellwood visible in the distance. That's home. Ben stepped forward instinctively. Wait. Spider-Man grabbed his arm. It could be a trap. The warning came too late. The rift pulsed again, and this time something emerged, not Vilgax or his drones, but something equally familiar to Ben. A null void projector. Ben recognized the device that had partially emerged from the rift. That's plumber tech. Before either hero could react, the projector activated, firing a beam of red energy directly at Ben. Years of fighting aliens had honed his reflexes, and he dove sideways, narrowly avoiding the blast. The beam struck a shield containment unit instead, instantly transporting it to the null void dimension. What just happened? Spider-Man demanded, webbing the projector and yanking it fully through the rift. Someone's trying to trap me in the null void, an interdimensional prison, Ben explained, eyeing the projector warily. Only plumbers and a few others have access to that technology. Your friends think you're a threat? Ben shook his head. No way. Gwen and Kevin would never. He trailed off as realization dawned. Vilgax. He must have stolen plumber tech after arriving in my universe. He's trying to remove me from the equation. The projector suddenly began to glow red, energy building within it. It's overloading. Ben warned. Get back. Spider-Man webbed the device and hurled it skyward just as it exploded. The blast sent out a shockwave of null void energy that temporarily expanded the dimensional rift before it stabilized again. That was too close, Spider-Man said, landing beside Ben. If that thing had created a direct connection to this null void. Half of Manhattan could have been transported there, Ben finished grimly. We need to close these rifts. Fast. Ben activated the Omnitrix, the containment bracelet humming in anticipation. Sorry, Tony. Emergency qualifies. He selected a transformation and slammed down the dial. Green light enveloped him, restructuring his DNA into a crystalline form. When the transformation completed, a silicon-based alien with a green crystalline body stood in Ben's place. Diamond Head, he announced. The containment bracelet adjusted to accommodate his transformed arm, glowing blue as it captured the dimensional discharge. What's the plan? Spider-Man asked, preparing for action. Diamond Head approached the rift cautiously. If I can't close it, maybe I can contain it. He placed his hands near the tear, concentrating as crystalline structures began growing from his palms. The crystal expanded outward, forming a cage-like structure around the dimensional rift. That won't hold forever, Diamond Head admitted as he completed the containment crystal. But it should prevent anything else from coming through while we check the other sites. Better than nothing, Spider-Man agreed. Friday just updated me, there are 3 more rifts in Manhattan we need to check. The nearest is in Times Square. Diamond Head nodded, touching the Omnitrix symbol on his chest to revert to human form. The containment bracelet hummed as it processed the dimensional energy. Let's move, Ben said, already feeling the strain of multiple transformations. And hope the others are having better luck with their rifts. Times Square had been completely evacuated, its famous electronic billboards dark as authorities cut power to the area. The dimensional rift here was larger than the one in Washington Square Park, hovering directly above the TKTS booth in the center of the square. But something was different about this rift. While the previous one had pulsed with purple energy, this tier glowed with a sickly red light. And surrounding it were what appeared to be humanoid figures made of shadow, their forms constantly shifting as they patrolled the perimeter. "What are those things?" Ben whispered as they observed from a rooftop. Spider-Man's posture tensed. "Morlun's hunters. They're not fully physical in our dimension, more like projections of his will. But they can still hurt you. How do we get past them to contain the rift?" "We don't," a new voice answered from behind them. Ben and Spider-Man whirled around to find a woman in a red leather jacket standing on the rooftop. Her brown hair was streaked with white at the front, and she held playing cards that glowed with kinetic energy between her fingers. "Rogue," Spider-Man identified her. "X-Men, right?" She nodded. "Professor X detected the dimensional disturbances. Said they felt similar to when the Mkron crystal was active." "The what now?" Ben asked. "Cosmic artifact, nearly destroyed reality once," Rogue explained casually. "Point is, those shadow things down there. They ain't just guarding the rift, they're feeding it, making it bigger." Ben studied the hunters more carefully, noting how energy seemed to flow from their forms into the rift. "They're siphoning dimensional energy. But why? What's on the other side of that particular tear?" "Only one way to find out," Spider-Man said. "But we need to deal with those hunters first." Rogue smiled, the playing cards in her hand glowing brighter. "That's why I'm here, sugar. Physical attacks don't work so well on them, but energy? That disrupts their little shadow party." She flicked a card toward a nearby hunter. It exploded on impact, dispersing the creature temporarily before it reformed. "See? Slows them down, at least." Ben activated the Omnitrix. "Energy attacks? I've got just the alien for that." He selected a form and transformed in a flash of green light. Where Ben had stood, a humanoid alien composed of living sound waves now floated. Its body was primarily black with green sonic discs on its head, hands, and chest. "Echo, echo." The transformation announced in a mechanical, synthesized voice. Spider-Man tilted his head. "What does this one do?" Echo, echo demonstrated by facing the nearest hunter and unleashing a devastating sonic scream. The concentrated sound waves ripped through the shadow creature, dispersing it completely. "Sonic attacks." Echo, echo explained. "And I can do this." He duplicated himself suddenly, creating 5 identical copies. Each copy can attack independently. "Now that's handy," Rogue commented appreciatively. "Let's clear a path to that rift." The 3 heroes descended into Times Square, Rogue leading with kinetically charged cards that exploded among the shadow hunters. The Echo Echo duplicate spread out, their sonic screams disrupting more creatures, while Spider-Man provided aerial support, webbing hunters together to make them easier targets. As they fought closer to the rift, Ben noticed something disturbing. The red energy was responding to their presence, pulsing more violently with each shadow hunter they destroyed. "Something's wrong," one Echo Echo called out. "The rift is feeding on the dispersed energy." Rogue noticed it too. "It's like a feedback loop. The more we fight these things, the stronger the rift gets," Spider-Man finished. "We need a new plan." The lead Echo Echo merged his duplicates back together, approaching the rift cautiously. "Maybe instead of fighting the hunters, we need to disrupt the rift directly." "How?" Rogue asked, backing away from an advancing shadow. Echo Echo studied the tier, noting how energy flowed into it from multiple directions. "It's like a circuit. If we overload it." He turned to his companions. "I need you to lure the hunters closer to the rift. That'll make it stronger." Spider-Man protested. "Temporarily, yes," Echo Echo agreed. "But if we can create a power surge." Spider-Man caught on quickly. "Energy overload. Risky, but it might work." They implemented the plan immediately. Rogue and Spider-Man began herding the shadow hunters toward the rift, using attacks to drive them rather than destroy them. As the creatures clustered around the dimensional tear, Echo positioned himself directly below it. When I give the signal, push them all in at once. The rift pulsed dangerously as the hunters gathered beneath it, their shadowy forms beginning to merge with the red energy. Now! Echo shouted. Spider-Man created a massive web that caught multiple hunters, yanking them upward into the rift. Rogue simultaneously released a barrage of charged cards that exploded beneath the remaining creatures, propelling them into the tear. As the shadow hunters made contact with the rift, Echo unleashed his most powerful sonic scream directly into the center of the dimensional tear. The combinatory energy, the hunter's shadows, the rift's dimensional force, and Echo's sonic attack, created exactly what Ben had hoped for, an overload. The rift expanded rapidly before collapsing in on itself with a thunderous implosion that knocked all three heroes off their feet. When the dust settled, the tear was gone, leaving only scorch marks on the pavement below where it had hovered. Echo reverted to human form, the containment bracelet processing the transformation energy. Ben looked exhausted but satisfied. It worked, he exclaimed, helping Rogue to her feet. The energy feedback caused the rift to collapse. 1 down, 16 to go, Spider-Man noted, checking a holographic display projected from his suit. But at least now we know how to close them. Rogue dusted herself off. You boys always bring this much excitement. Pretty much, Ben admitted with a tired smile. Their moment of victory was interrupted by an alert from Spider-Man's communication device. It's from the compound. Shuri's finished the improved containment bracelet and wants us back ASAP. He looked at Ben's current bracelet, which was glowing dangerously bright. And judging by the state of that one, not a moment too soon. Ben nodded in agreement, feeling the strain of multiple transformations. Each one seemed to drain him more than usual in this dimension, the energy requirements increasing as the Omnitrix adapted to this universe's physics. Need a lift? Rogue offered, gesturing to a sleek aircraft that had decloaked above them, the X-Men's Blackbird. That would be great, Ben replied gratefully. And maybe you could explain what these X-Men are on the way. This universe has way too many superhero teams to keep track of. The Avengers compound was a hive of activity when they arrived. Heroes moved with purpose between stations, coordinating responses to the remaining dimensional rifts. Holographic displays showed real-time updates from each anomaly site, with teams reporting varying degrees of success in containing the tiers. Shuri was waiting for them in the main laboratory, a sleek new device resting on a workbench beside her. Unlike Tony's bulkier containment bracelet, Shuri's creation was elegantly minimalist, a thin band of vibranium with intricate circuitry visible beneath its surface. Finally, she said as Ben entered. Your current containment device is at 98% capacity. Another transformation would have caused catastrophic failure. Ben removed Tony's bracelet carefully, noting how hot it had become. Just in time then. Shuri took the old device, placing it in a specialized containment unit. The dimensional energy we've collected will be useful for tracking the source of these rifts. She handed Ben the new bracelet. This version achieves 97% containment efficiency using vibranium's unique properties to absorb and redirect dimensional discharge. Ben slipped the new device onto his wrist above the Omnitrix. It was surprisingly light, conforming to his arm as if custom-fitted. It's also equipped with communication capability and biometric monitoring, Shuri added. We'll be able to track your status remotely and warn you if transformation becomes too dangerous. Thanks, Ben said sincerely. This is amazing work. Shuri smiled, pride evident in her expression. Of course it is. I made it. Tony entered the lab, his expression serious. Briefing in 5 minutes. We've got updates from all teams, and it's not all good news. What happened? Spider-Man asked. Vision and Wanda reached the convergence point, Tony explained grimly. They found evidence that someone's been channeling energy from all 17 rifts to create something bigger. Morlun, Spider-Man guessed. Possibly. But there's more. Tony brought up a holographic display showing security footage from various locations around the world. Each clip showed the same thing, advanced technological facilities being raided by what appeared to be Vilgax's drones, now upgraded with Earth technology. Your squid-faced friend has been busy. In the past 3 hours, he's hit research centers in Japan, Germany, and California. Ben studied the footage with growing concern. He's gathering technology. Adapting to this world. Worse than that, Tony continued. Based on what he's stolen, our analysts believe he's building something to amplify the dimensional rifts. If he succeeds, he could bring his entire armada through, Ben finished. Trust me, you don't want that. His warship alone could level New York. The implications hung heavy in the air. Ben had faced Vilgax many times before, but always with the home field advantage of fighting in his own universe. Here, with Vilgax rapidly adapting to new technology and potentially allying with this world's villains, the threat was exponentially greater. The briefing will cover our response strategy, Tony said, leading them toward the conference room. But there's something else you should know. He hesitated, as if unsure how to phrase what came next. We've detected another dimensional signature. Different from the rifts, more controlled. Like someone punched a precise hole between universes. Ben's heart jumped. My friends? They might be looking for me. That's what we thought at first, Tony admitted. But the energy signature is, well, Strange would call it mystical rather than technological. And it's converging on the same location as the rift energy. So not my friends, Ben concluded, disappointment evident in his voice. Probably not. But whoever it is knows exactly what they're doing with dimensional travel. Which means they might be able to help us, or they're another major threat. They entered the conference room, where the assembled heroes waited. Steve Rogers stood at the head of the table, with Vision, Wanda, and other Avengers arrayed around it. Screens displayed remote participants, a bald man in a wheelchair who Ben assumed was the Professor X Rogue had mentioned, a stern-looking man with an eye patch, and most surprisingly, a face Ben recognized instantly. Fury, Xavier, and, is that Reed Richards? Spider-Man whispered, noticing Ben's surprise. Mr. Fantastic, Ben confirmed. The Fantastic Four are real here too. Very real, and very interested in dimensional breaches, Tony noted. Reed's been studying similar phenomena for years. As they took their seats, Steve Rogers began the briefing, outlining what they knew about the rifts, Vilgax's activities, and the mysterious new dimensional traveler. Maps, energy readings, and tactical assessments were presented with military precision. Our primary objectives are threefold, Steve concluded. First, contain and close the remaining rifts. Second, locate and neutralize Vilgax before he completes whatever device he's building. Third, identify the new dimensional entity and determine if they're friend or foe. Reed Richards spoke up from his screen. Based on the energy readings you've provided, I believe the rifts are symptoms, not the cause. Something, or someone, is deliberately weakening the dimensional boundaries between specific universes. Morlun, Spider-Man suggested again. He feeds on the energy of dimensional crossroads. Perhaps, Richards agreed. But the pattern suggests something more precise than simple feeding. These rifts form a perfect geometric pattern centered on a specific location in upstate New York. Ben frowned. What's at that location? Nothing, Tony replied. Literally nothing. It's an empty field about 30 miles from here. Nothing now, Vision corrected. But historical records indicate it was once the site of a meteorite impact approximately 300 years ago. The meteorite was removed and studied by early natural philosophers, but its composition was unlike any terrestrial material. And let me guess, Ben said, the meteorite has been missing for centuries. Precisely, Vision confirmed. Its last known location was a private collection in London that was destroyed in a fire in 1842. Ben exchanged glances with Spider-Man. Both were thinking the same thing. Cosmic objects with mysterious properties had a way of reappearing at the worst possible moments. So we've got a missing space rock, 17-dimensional rifts, an interdimensional vampire, a squid-faced warlord building doomsday tech, and an unknown dimensional traveler all converging on the same location, Sam Wilson summarized. Perfect. We need teams at the convergence point immediately, Steve ordered. If this is building to some kind of event, we need to be there to stop it. What about the remaining rifts? Wanda asked. They're still growing. Reed has developed a dimensional stabilizer, Tony explained. Not as elegant as closing them like you did in Times Square, but effective enough to buy us time. I can help deploy those, Ben offered. I've got forms that can reach the rifts quickly. Steve nodded in agreement. Ben, Spider-Man, and Falcon take the stabilizers to the remaining rifts. Vision, Wanda, and I will investigate the convergence point. Tony, coordinate with Shuri on tracking Vilgax's technology signature. The rest of you, be ready to move when we identify his location. As the meeting concluded and the heroes dispersed to their assignments, Ben felt a strange mix of emotions. In just over a day, he'd been thrust into the center of a crisis in a universe he previously thought fictional. He was working alongside legendary heroes, facing familiar enemies in unfamiliar territory, and dealing with dimensional physics that threatened both his world and this one. Yet despite the danger and the uncertainty, there was something oddly comforting about the situation. Heroes were heroes, no matter what universe they came from. The faces and powers might be different, but the determination to protect innocent lives remained constant. You okay? Spider-Man asked as they collected the stabilizer devices from Shuri. Yeah, Ben replied with a determined nod. Just thinking that some things stay the same across dimensions. Bad guys plot, good guys stop them, Tuesday gets weird. Spider-Man laughed. Couldn't have said it better myself. Deploying the stabilizers proved more challenging than anticipated. Each rift had developed unique properties based on its location, some becoming more volatile while others had attracted unusual phenomena, strange weather patterns, gravity fluctuations, or temporal distortions that made approaching them difficult. Ben cycled through several transformations as needed, XLR8 speed, big chills intangibility, and heat blasts energy manipulation all proving useful for different rifts. With each transformation, Shuri's improved containment bracelet hummed quietly, efficiently capturing the dimensional discharge without the dangerous buildup of Tony's prototype. Last one, Spider-Man announced as they approached the final rift in Jersey City. This tier hovered above a high school, its purple energy occasionally discharging lightning-like bursts that had scorched the building's facade. I'll handle it, Ben said, activating the Omnitrix once more. He transformed into Jet Ray, the aerodynamic alien perfect for maneuvering through the rift's energy discharges. As Jet Ray flew toward the tear, a strange sensation washed over him, a feeling of familiarity, as if the energy signature was somehow recognizable. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest pulsed in response, resonating with the rift's frequency. Spider-Man, Jet Ray called down. This one feels different. It's almost like, it's tuned to my universe specifically. Be careful. Spider-Man warned. It could be another trap. But before Jet Ray could deploy the stabilizer, the rift pulsed violently, expanding to twice its size. The tear widened, and through it emerged a figure that made Jet Ray's heart leap with recognition, a young woman with fiery red hair, glowing pink energy emanating from her hands. Gwen! Jet Ray exclaimed, flying closer. Gwen Tennyson hovered at the edge of the rift, her expression relieved as she spotted the familiar alien form. Ben! Thank goodness. We've been searching every dimensional frequency we could track. How did you find me? Jet Ray asked, maintaining a safe distance from the unstable rift. The Omnitrix, Gwen explained. It's been sending out dimensional pulses with each transformation. Paradox helped us isolate the frequency. Paradox is involved. That's great. He can help me get home. Gwen's expression turned grave. It's not that simple, Ben. The dimensional barriers are collapsing on both sides. Something is deliberately weakening them, drawing power from the instability. Morlun, Jetray guessed. An interdimensional vampire from this universe. Not just him, Gwen countered. There's someone working from our side too. We're not sure who yet, but they're coordinating with forces in your current location. This was new information, and troubling. If the attack was coming from both universes simultaneously, closing the rifts in this world wouldn't solve the problem. What about Vilgax? Jetray asked. He's here too, gathering technology. We suspected as much, Gwen replied. Kevin tracked his ship leaving Earth orbit shortly after you disappeared. We thought he was just running away after your fight, but he must have found a way to follow you. Their conversation was interrupted by Spider-Man, who had used his webs to ascend to their position. Jetray? The rift is growing again. He was right, the tear was expanding rapidly, energy crackling dangerously around its edges. The connection is destabilizing, Gwen warned. I can't maintain it much longer. She thrust her hand forward, a small device passing through the rift. Take this. It's a communicator paradox modified. It can transmit across dimensions when the barriers are thinnest. Jetray caught the device just as the rift began to collapse. Gwen, wait. How do I get home? Find what's causing the rifts, she called, her form already fading as the tear shrank. Stop it on your end, we'll stop it on ours. The convergence is happening the rift closed with a thunderous boom, cutting off Gwen's final words. Jetray hovered in place, clutching the interdimensional communicator, a mix of hope and frustration washing over him. Was that your cousin? Spider-Man asked as Jetray descended to the rooftop. A flash of green light returned Ben to human form. Yeah. She found me through the dimensional frequency of the Omnitrix. He held up the small device Gwen had passed through the rift. And she gave us a way to communicate when the barriers thin again. That's good news, right? Ben nodded hesitantly. Yes and no. She confirmed there's someone on my side working with Morlun, deliberately weakening the dimensional barriers. Any idea who? No, but the list of beings in my universe with that kind of power is pretty short. Ben examined the communicator thoughtfully. Paradox would know. Paradox. Professor Paradox. Time Walker, Dimensional Traveler. Kind of like your Doctor Strange, but with a focus on temporal mechanics rather than mysticism. Ben pocketed the device carefully. If he's involved, the situation is definitely serious. He usually only appears for universe-ending threats. Spider-Man's communication device buzzed, interrupting their conversation. It's Tony. The team at the convergence point has made contact with our mystery dimensional traveler. He paused, listening to the update. And you're not going to believe who it is. Try me, Ben challenged, already preparing for another transformation to fly them back to the compound. Doctor Strange. He's back, but not our Doctor Strange. A variant from another universe. Ben's eyes widened. A strange variant? That complicates things. Tony wants us back at the compound immediately. Apparently, this Strange has critical information about what's happening. Ben activated the Omnitrix, selecting Big Chill for its flight capabilities. Then let's not keep him waiting. With a flash of green light, he transformed and took to the sky, Spider-Man web-slinging close behind. As they traveled, Ben couldn't help wondering what new complications awaited them. A strange variant, Morlun's plans, Vilgax's technology theft, and now confirmation of a threat from his own universe, all converging on a single point. Whatever was coming, Ben had a feeling it would make their previous encounters look like a warm-up. The dimensional traveler waited in the Avengers compound's secure meeting room, surrounded by cautious heroes. At first glance, he appeared identical to the Doctor Strange that Ben had briefly met, same distinctive goatee, same elaborate robes, same mystical artifacts. But subtle differences became apparent upon closer inspection. This strange hair was streaked with more gray, his face bore additional scars, and his left hand was encased in a complex magical brace. Vision, Wanda, and Steve stood nearby, their postures suggesting a mix of caution and curiosity. Tony entered alongside Ben and Spider-Man, his expression unreadable behind a mask of professional interest. "So," Tony began without preamble, "you claim to be Stephen Strange, but not our Stephen Strange." The sorcerer nodded. "From Earth 838, to be precise. A universe similar to yours in many ways, but with significant divergences." His eyes settled on Ben. "Including the absence of young Mr. Tennyson's reality as a fictional construct." Ben blinked in surprise. "You know who I am. I've encountered your counterpart in the multiverse before," Strange 838 explained. Though in his universe, he discovered the Omnitrix at age 15 rather than 10, and it functions somewhat differently. He gestured to the device on Ben's wrist. "Your presence here is both unfortunate and fortuitous." "How so?" Steve asked, arms crossed skeptically. Strange 838 waved his hand, creating a complex magical diagram in the air, a map of interconnected realities, with glowing lines representing dimensional boundaries. "The multiverse exists in delicate balance," he explained. "Different universes vibrating at different frequencies, separated by barriers that prevent catastrophic interaction. But those barriers can be weakened, breached," his eyes fixed on Ben, "or deliberately destabilized. By someone like Morlun," Spider-Man suggested. "Morlun is merely an opportunist," Strange 838 countered. "A predator who exploits weaknesses in the dimensional fabric. The true architect of this crisis is far more dangerous." He expanded the magical diagram, highlighting a dark presence moving between realities. "In my universe, we call him the Time Eater, a being that consumes dimensional energy, gradually unraveling reality itself." "And let me guess," Tony interjected. "He's here." "Not yet," Strange 838 replied grimly. "But the preparations for his arrival are well underway. The rifts forming around this region serve a specific purpose, to create a dimensional confluence, a perfect storm of weakened barriers that will allow the Time Eater to manifest physically in this reality." Ben studied the diagram carefully. "And once he's here, total consumption begins," Strange 838 said flatly. "First this universe, then adjacent realities, including yours, Mr. Tennyson. The Time Eater doesn't merely destroy, it erases. Those consumed by it never existed at all." The implications settled heavily on the room. This wasn't just about getting Ben home or stopping Vilgax, it was about preventing multiple universes from being wiped from existence. "How do we stop it?" Steve asked, ever focused on solutions rather than problems. Strange 838 gestured to Ben. "The Omnitrix is key. It contains DNA from thousands of species across multiple galaxies, a biological record of an entire universe. That concentration of dimensional information makes it both a target and a potential weapon against the Time Eater." "Is that why Morlun wants it?" Spider-Man asked. "Morlun seeks it as sustenance," Strange 838 clarified. "The dimensional energy it contains would feed him for centuries. But the Time Eater's servant, the one coordinating these efforts, wants it as a catalyst." "Servant?" Ben questioned. "You mean the person working for my universe?" Strange 838 nodded. "A being of considerable power who serves the Time Eater in exchange for preservation when the consumption begins. I've tracked this servant across 17 realities already, always employing the same strategy: find a unique power source, use it to weaken dimensional barriers, prepare the way for the Time Eater." "And who exactly is this servant?" Tony pressed. Strange 838 turned to Ben. "In your reality, you know him as Ian, a supposedly benevolent chronosapian who has guided Omnitrix wielders throughout history." Ben felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. "Ian. But he helped me master the Omnitrix. He's appeared multiple times to warn me about threats. All part of his long game, Strange 838 explained sympathetically. Ian plays many roles across the multiverse, sometimes hero, sometimes villain, always serving his true master's agenda. His interest in you was never about helping, it was about developing the Omnitrix's dimensional properties for the Time Eater's use. The revelation left Ben reeling. Ian had appeared at critical junctures in his hero career, offering guidance and warnings about timeline threats. To learn it was all manipulation, that a being he'd trusted was actually working toward universal destruction, was devastating. If Ian is working for my universe and Morlun from this one, Ben reasoned, trying to focus on the practical problem, where does Vilgax fit in? An opportunist, like Morlun, Strange 838 suggested. Though I suspect Ian may have manipulated events to ensure Vilgax followed you here, another distraction while the true plan unfolds. This convergence point, Vision interjected, the former meteorite impact site. What significance does it hold? The meteorite wasn't simply space rock, Strange 838 explained. It was a fragment of a chronosapien time drive, similar to the technology Ian himself is composed of. Its residual temporal energy created a weak point in the dimensional barriers, perfect for the ritual Ian and Morlun are preparing. Which is scheduled to occur when? Tony asked. Tomorrow night, Strange 838 replied. When the dimensional alignment reaches its peak. The timeline suddenly became clear, less than 24 hours to prepare for a confrontation that would determine the fate of multiple universes. Ben felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders, the Omnitrix suddenly feeling heavier on his wrist. So what's our plan? He asked, looking around at the assembled heroes. Multi-pronged approach, Steve decided, military strategy evident in his voice. We locate and neutralize Vilgax to eliminate that threat vector. We secure the convergence point to prevent the ritual from being completed. And we prepare countermeasures against both Morlun and this Time Eater in case they manifest. I can help with the last part, Strange 838 offered. I've encountered the Time Eater before and survived, one of the few sorcerers who can make that claim. What about Ian? Ben asked. If he's working for my universe, how do we stop him? Strange 838 turned to the interdimensional communicator Ben had received from Gwen. That device may be our best option for coordination. If your allies can confront Ian on their side while we handle matters here. Two-front war, Tony concluded. I like it. But we need to confirm this story first. He turned to Wanda. Can you verify our visitor's claims? I'd rather not base our entire battle plan on the word of a strange we just met. Wanda stepped forward, red energy flowing from her fingers as she probed Strange 838's mind. After several tense moments, she nodded. He believes everything he's told us. I sense no deception, though there may be details he's withholding for what he considers our protection. Strange 838 inclined his head slightly. Some knowledge is too dangerous to share fully. But I assure you, my goal aligns with yours. Prevent the Time Eater's manifestation at all costs. Then we prepare for battle, Steve declared. Tony, coordinate with Shuri on tracking Vilgax's technology signature. Spider-Man, work with Ben to establish communication with his universe using that device. The rest of us will begin fortifying the convergence point. As the meeting broke up and heroes moved to their assignments, Ben found himself alone with Spider-Man and Strange 838. The sorcerer studied Ben with an expression that seemed almost paternal. The burden falls heavily on you, Ben Tennyson, Strange 838 observed. In every universe I've visited where the Omnitrix exists, its wielder stands at the center of cosmic conflicts. Lucky me, Ben replied with a hint of gallows humor. Strange 838's expression softened slightly. It's not luck. The Omnitrix seeks worthy wielders, those with the moral compass to use its power responsibly. That remains consistent across all realities. The compliment, unexpected from this stern interdimensional traveler, caught Ben off guard. Thanks, I guess. Though right now, I'd trade a little worthiness for a solid plan to get home without destroying the multiverse. One often accompanies the other, Strange 838 noted cryptically before departing to assist with preparations. Spider-Man placed a reassuring hand on Ben's shoulder. For what it's worth, I think he's right about you. The Omnitrix couldn't have found a better wielder to help us through this. Ben managed a smile. Thanks. Now let's see if we can get this communicator working. I need to warn Gwen about Ian before it's too late. The convergence point, a seemingly unremarkable field in upstate New York, was rapidly transforming into a fortified position as Avengers and their allies prepared for the coming confrontation. Energy barriers created by Wakandan technology formed a perimeter around the area. Heroes with various abilities took strategic positions, guided by Captain America's tactical experience. At the center of it all, Ben worked alongside Spider-Man, Tony, and Shuri to modify the interdimensional communicator. The small device Gwen had passed through the rift lay partially disassembled on a portable workstation, its alien components interfaced with Earth technology. The quantum frequency oscillator needs recalibration, Shuri noted, making minute adjustments. It's trying to connect to your universe, but the signal keeps bouncing off dimensional barriers. Ben, currently transformed into gray matter for his enhanced intelligence, examined the components with his Galvan perspective. The barrier between dimensions is thinnest at the rifts themselves. If we boost the signal and direct it through one of the stabilized tiers, we might establish a stable connection, Tony finished, already working on modifications to the signal booster. But we need something to help it lock onto your specific universe among the infinite possibilities. Gray matter tapped the Omnitrix symbol thoughtfully. The Omnitrix itself maintains a quantum entanglement with its home dimension. If we use that as a homing beacon, that could work, Shuri agreed, but it would require interfacing the communicator directly with the Omnitrix. Which risks destabilizing both, Tony cautioned. One wrong connection and we could fry the only dimensional anchor we have. Gray matter shook his tiny head. We don't have a choice. Gwen needs to know about Ian before the convergence begins. With careful precision, they created an interface between the communicator and the Omnitrix, using Shuri's vibranium-based technology to ensure stable energy transfer. As the final connections were made, gray matter reverted to human form, the transformation timing out naturally. Ready? Tony asked, hand hovering over the activation switch. Ben nodded, bracing himself. Do it. The device hummed to life, drawing power from the Omnitrix's dimensional connection. The bracelet Shuri had created glowed intensely as it managed the energy discharge, preventing dangerous leakage into the surrounding area. For several tense moments, nothing happened. Then, suddenly, a holographic projection flickered into existence above the communicator, Gwen's face, her expression a mix of relief and concern. Ben. Thank goodness. The signal's weak, but I can see you. Gwen. Listen carefully, we don't have much time, Ben explained rapidly. Ian is behind this. He's working with something called the Time Eater to weaken dimensional barriers. You need to find him in our universe and stop whatever ritual he's performing. Gwen's projection flickered, parts of her response lost to interference. Suspected something. Paradox warned. Bellwood Observatory, preparing a. We're losing her, Tony warned, adjusting controls frantically. Ben leaned closer to the projection. Gwen. The convergence happens tomorrow night. You need to stop Ian before then. Trying to. Kevin and. Plumbers, reinforcements. The connection deteriorated further, Gwen's image breaking apart into pixels. Be careful, not alone, coming for. With a final surge of energy that caused the Omnitrix to spark painfully, the connection severed completely. The communicator smoked slightly before powering down, its components stressed beyond recovery. Did she get the message? Spider-Man asked. Ben rubbed his wrist where the Omnitrix had sparked. I think so. At least the part about Ian. They're tracking him to the Bellwood Observatory. Then they'll handle their side of the battle, Tony concluded. We need to focus on ours. Their planning was interrupted by an alert from Friday's systems. Boss, satellite tracking has located Vilgax. He's constructed a facility in the Catskill Mountains, approximately 50 miles southeast of our position. Tony brought up the satellite imagery, showing what appeared to be a hastily constructed base built into the side of a mountain. Energy readings suggested significant power generation, and thermal imaging revealed numerous heat signatures consistent with drones and other mechanical constructs. He's been busy, Tony observed. That's a lot of hardware to assemble in less than 2 days. Ben studied the imagery carefully. That's Vilgax's style: find a defensible position, fortify it with stolen technology, then launch his attack from a position of strength. But what's he building? Shuri enhanced the imagery, focusing on a particularly strong energy signature at the center of the facility. That appears to be some kind of dimensional amplifier. Similar to what we're detecting at the rifts, but much more powerful. He's trying to bring his warship through, Ben realized. If he can create a rift large enough, he could transport his entire invasion force to this dimension. Which would be a catastrophic distraction while Morlun and Ian complete their ritual, Spider-Man added. We need to shut him down. Steve Rogers joined them, having overheard the discovery. We'll split our forces. One team handles Vilgax, the other secures the convergence point. I should go after Vilgax, Ben suggested. I know how he thinks, how he fights. I've beaten him before. Steve nodded in agreement. Take Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Black Panther. The 4 of you move fast, hit hard, and destroy whatever device he's building. The rest of US will hold position here with Strange 838 to prepare for Morlun. As the teams organized themselves, Ben found a quiet moment to check the Omnitrix. The encounter with Vilgax earlier had shown him that his nemesis was adapting quickly to this universe's technology. This confrontation would be different from their previous encounters. You ready for this? Spider-Man asked, joining him. Vilgax sounds like bad news even by supervillain standards. He conquered 10 worlds before I ever met him, Ben replied grimly. And that was without access to Stark tech, vibranium, or whatever else he's scavenged here. But yeah, I'm ready. Spider-Man nodded, his mask's lenses narrowing slightly. For what it's worth, I'm glad you fell into our universe. We make a pretty good team. Ben smiled, appreciating the sentiment. Yeah, we do. Though I'm still hoping to get back to my own eventually. One crisis at a time, Spider-Man reminded him. First Vilgax, then Morlun, then the Time Eater. After all that, getting you home should be the easy part. Right, Ben agreed with a hint of sarcasm. The easy part. As they joined Iron Man and Black Panther, the latter having arrived from Wakanda to assist personally once he learned of the threat, Ben couldn't help reflecting on the strange journey that had brought him here. From accidentally falling through a dimensional rift to now standing alongside legendary heroes to save multiple universes, it had been a whirlwind experience. But underneath the wonder and excitement lay a grim determination. Vilgax, Morlun, Ian, the Time Eater, each threat alone would be formidable. Together, they represented perhaps the greatest challenge Ben had ever faced. As he activated the Omnitrix, selecting a transformation suitable for the coming battle, Ben silently vowed to meet that challenge head-on. Universe-hopping hero or not, he had a job to do. And heroes got the job done, no matter what universe they found themselves in. Vilgax's mountain facility loomed before them, its hastily constructed exterior belying the sophisticated technology within. Sensor arrays and defense turrets dotted the perimeter, while drones patrolled in precise patterns. The entire complex hummed with energy, centered around what appeared to be a massive device protruding from the mountainside, clearly the dimensional amplifier they detected. Subtle, Iron Man commented as they observed from a concealed position half a mile away. Very evil Lair monthly aesthetic. Ben, currently in his human form to conserve the Omnitrix's energy, studied the facility's layout through the binoculars Tony had provided. For guard rotations, automated defenses covering all approaches, and what looks like an energy shield protecting the central chamber. Classic Vilgax security protocols. Impressive analysis, Chala, the Black Panther, observed. His vibranium suit absorbed ambient light, making him nearly invisible in the growing evening shadows. When you've fought someone as many times as I've fought Vilgax, you learn their playbook, Ben explained. He's expecting an attack, but he'll be anticipating my aliens, not a combined assault with you three. So we use that to our advantage, Spider-Man suggested. Hit him from multiple angles, disrupt his expectations. Iron Man's faceplate retracted, revealing Tony's thoughtful expression. The energy readings from that amplifier are growing stronger by the minute. Whatever he's planning, it's happening soon. We need to move. Ben nodded, activating the Omnitrix. I'll take the front approach as a diversion. Vilgax always expects me to come at him directly, let's use that against him. He selected a transformation and slammed down the dial. Green light enveloped him, restructuring his DNA into one of his most powerful forms. When the transformation completed, a massive crystalline alien stood in Ben's place, 12 feet tall with a body composed of green crystal, spikes protruding from his back and shoulders. Diamond Head, the transformation announced. I'll draw their fire while you three infiltrate from different angles. Chala nodded in approval. I will take the eastern approach. Their sensor array appears weakest there. I'll come in from above, Iron Man added. Spider-Man, you take the western wall, lots of natural handholds for your climbing abilities. Perfect for a spider, he agreed. With their plan established, the team moved into position. Diamond Head approached the facility's main entrance directly, making no attempt at stealth. As expected, alarms immediately blared, and defense turrets swiveled to target him. Attention unauthorized life form, an automated voice announced. This is a restricted area. Lethal force is authorized. Let me guess, Diamond Head called out, Vilgax is expecting me. In response, dozens of drones deployed from hidden bays, surrounding him in a semicircle. Each was armed with weapons that appeared to combine alien technology with Earth-based designs, a hybrid approach that concerned Diamond Head more than he let on. Ben Tennyson detected, the lead drone announced. Initiating Capture Protocol Alpha. Always with the protocols, Diamond Head muttered, raising his arms as crystalline structures formed around them. Let's dance. The drones opened fire simultaneously, energy beams converging on his position. Diamond Head created a crystalline shield, deflecting most of the attacks while redirecting others back at the drones themselves. Several exploded on impact, but more emerged to take their place. Vilgax. Diamond Head shouted as he fought. I know you're watching. Come out and face me yourself. While Diamond Head provided a very loud and destructive diversion, his teammates infiltrated the facility from their designated approaches. Iron Man disabled the sensor array with precisely targeted repulsor blasts before landing on the roof. Black Panther moved with preternatural silence through the eastern defenses, his vibranium suit absorbing the sound of his passage. And Spider-Man scaled the western wall, avoiding detection through a combination of agility and well-timed movements during drone patrol gaps. Inside the facility, they converged on the central chamber where the dimensional amplifier was housed. The massive device resembled a circular gateway, its interior filled with swirling energy that pulsed with increasing intensity. That doesn't look stable, Spider-Man observed as they regrouped in a maintenance corridor overlooking the chamber. It's not meant to be, Iron Man replied, his suit sensors analyzing the energy signature. It's designed to rip a hole between dimensions, stability would defeat the purpose. Black Panther pointed to a figure overseeing the operation from a control platform, Vilgax himself, his squid-like features set in a grimace of concentration as he made adjustments to the controls. The warlord appears to be operating the device personally, Chala noted. No subordinates in the chamber itself. Because he doesn't trust anyone else with the technical specifics, Iron Man surmised. Smart, but it creates a single point of failure. Spider-Man's enhanced senses suddenly alerted him to danger. Incoming. Large group, moving fast. Before they could react, the wall beside them exploded inward, sending debris flying as a massive armored figure crashed through. It wasn't Vilgax, but rather a humanoid robot nearly 9 feet tall, its design clearly inspired by the Warlord's aesthetic. Vilgax Drone Enforcer. Iron Man identified it as his armor absorbed a powerful energy blast from the robot's arm cannon. Heavily armed and, more explosions rocked the corridor as additional enforcers burst through walls and ceiling panels. Within seconds, the heroes found themselves surrounded by 6 of the massive robots, each armed with weapons designed to counter their specific abilities. He knew we'd split up, Spider-Man realized, dodging a barrage of rapid-fire projectiles designed to saturate an area too completely for his spider sense to navigate. This was a trap. Outside, Diamond Head faced a similar escalation as the standard drones suddenly withdrew, replaced by specialized units with crystal-disrupting sonic weapons. Their coordinated attack forced him to fall back, his crystalline form vibrating painfully under the assault. "Guys," Diamond Head called through their communication link, "Vilgax knew our plan. The drones out here just switched to anti-Petrosapien weapons. We noticed." Iron Man replied, the sounds of intense combat accompanying his transmission. "He's prepared countermeasures for all of us." Inside the facility, the battle intensified as each hero found themselves facing enforcer drones specifically designed to neutralize their abilities. Spider-Man's agility was countered by predictive targeting systems. Iron Man's repulsors were absorbed by adaptive shielding. Black Panther's vibranium claws struggled to penetrate armor specifically formulated to resist them. "Fall back to the main chamber," Iron Man ordered, recognizing the tactical disadvantage. "We need to regroup." The heroes fought their way toward the amplifier chamber, barely staying ahead of the relentless enforcers. As they burst through the entrance, they found Vilgax waiting for them, a twisted smile on his alien features. "How predictable," the Warlord gloated. "The heroes arrived just in time to witness my triumph." The dimensional amplifier behind him pulsed violently, the energy within coalescing into a recognizable pattern, a rift forming between dimensions, similar to the others but vastly larger and more stable. "You're too late," Vilgax continued. "In moments, my warship will breach your dimension, and this world will join the others I've conquered." Outside, Diamond Head had reached his limit against the specialized drones. With no alternative, he slapped the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, transforming in a flash of green light. Where the crystalline alien had stood, a new form appeared, a humanoid composed of living sound waves. "Echo, echo," the transformation announced in its synthesized voice. The sonic attack that had been devastating against Diamond Head passed harmlessly through Echo Echo's sound-based form. With a reverberating cry, he unleashed his own sonic attack, the precisely modulated frequency shattering the drone's control systems. "Time to help the others," Echo Echo declared, duplicating himself into multiple copies that raced toward the facility's entrance. Inside, the situation had deteriorated further. The enforcer drones had surrounded the heroes, forcing them into a defensive circle as Vilgax continued his final preparations. "I must thank you, Tennyson," Vilgax called toward the entrance where Echo Echo's duplicates now appeared. "Without your dimensional signature to follow, I might never have discovered this resource-rich universe." The Echo Echo duplicates merged back into a single form, advancing cautiously. "It's over, Vilgax. We've closed most of the rifts already. This is the last stand. Close them." Vilgax laughed, the sound unnervingly alien. "Those rifts were merely tests, preliminary work by other beings for their own purposes. I merely piggybacked on their efforts." He gestured to the amplifier. "This is my creation, a stable pathway that will remain open indefinitely." As if on cue, the rift within the amplifier expanded dramatically, its edges stabilizing into a permanent portal. Through it, the distinctive silhouette of Vilgax's massive warship became visible, slowly advancing toward the dimensional boundary. "Behold!" Vilgax declared triumphantly. "The Chimerian hammer approaches. In moments, my full military might will be at my disposal in this dimension." "Not happening," Iron Man declared, his armor systems already calculating weak points in the amplifier's structure. "Team, priority target is the device, not the drones." The heroes responded immediately, shifting their focus to the dimensional amplifier. Spider-Man fired impact webbing at critical junctions. Black Panther hurled vibranium daggers at power conduits. Iron Man unleashed his unibeam directly at the control console. Vilgax roared in fury, charging forward to intercept them. "Destroy them," he commanded the Enforcer drones. Echo assessed the situation rapidly. The others were fully engaged with the drones and couldn't reach the amplifier's main power source, a massive generator beneath the control platform where Vilgax had stood. "Cover me!" Echo called, creating 3 duplicates that unleashed sonic screams to disrupt the nearest drones. While his duplicates provided cover, Echo slipped through the chaos of battle, utilizing his small size and sound-based physiology to avoid detection. He reached the underside of the platform, where the generator hummed with dangerous levels of energy. "This is gonna be loud," Echo muttered, placing his hands on the generator's surface. Above, Vilgax had joined the battle personally, his enhanced strength sending Iron Man crashing into a wall. Spider-Man narrowly avoided being crushed by a massive fist, while Black Panther's vibranium suit absorbed a direct energy blast that would have vaporized normal armor. "Your resistance is futile," Vilgax declared, his cybernetic enhancements glowing with power. "In my own universe, I might have settled for simply taking the Omnitrix. But here I will rule an entire dimension." From below the platform came a sudden, ear-splitting sonic blast, Echo unleashing his full power directly into the generator's resonance chamber. The frequency, perfectly calibrated to the generator's operational parameters, caused a catastrophic harmonic buildup within the power core. "No!" Vilgax roared, realizing what was happening. "The containment field." The generator exploded in a blinding flash, the shockwave rippling through the facility. The dimensional amplifier shuddered, its carefully calibrated systems failing as power fluctuations destabilized the rift. On the other side, the Chimerian hammer halted its approach as the portal began to collapse. Echo was thrown clear by the explosion, colliding painfully with a far wall before reverting to human form in a flash of green light. Ben lay dazed, the Omnitrix recharging after the sudden transformation loss. Through blurred vision, he saw the chaos unfolding, the amplifier collapsing in on itself, the rift shrinking rapidly, and Vilgax standing at its edge, fury and desperation warring on his alien features. "This isn't over, Tennyson," Vilgax shouted above the din of destruction. With a final glare of hatred, the warlord leaped through the diminishing rift, returning to his own universe moments before the portal closed completely. The Enforcer drones, suddenly without their master's guidance, entered a default protocol, self-destruction. Iron Man, recognizing the danger, created an energy shield around his teammates as the robots detonated in sequence, bringing down significant portions of the facility. "We need to move," Iron Man shouted, his armor's structural integrity warnings flashing. "This whole place is coming down." Spider-Man located Ben in the debris, helping him to his feet. "Can you walk?" "Yeah," Ben managed, leaning on the wall for support. "Vilgax?" "Gone, back to your universe through the rift." Black Panther joined them, his suit damaged but functional. "The facility's self-destruct sequence has activated. We have less than 2 minutes." Ben checked the Omnitrix, still recharging, its faceplate pulsing slowly as it recovered from the forced deactivation. "I can't transform yet." "Don't need to," Iron Man declared, activating his armor's emergency evacuation protocol. "Everyone hold on." The ceiling above them exploded outward as Iron Man's repulsors fired at maximum power, creating an escape route through the collapsing structure. With Spider-Man carrying Ben and Black Panther using his suit's enhanced agility, they escaped the facility moments before it imploded, a massive fireball consuming what remained of Vilgax's dimensional amplifier. From a safe distance, they watched the destruction, the mountain itself seeming to shudder as secondary explosions continued within. "Well," Iron Man commented dryly, his armor battered but functional, "that's one problem solved. Vilgax is back in your universe, his dimensional gateway is destroyed, and his Earth-based technology is now a smoking crater. But he'll try again," Ben warned, finally steady on his feet. "Vilgax doesn't give up easily." "Let him try," Black Panther replied confidently. "Next time, we will be better prepared." Ben wasn't so sure. Vilgax had adapted to this universe's technology with frightening speed, creating countermeasures for heroes he'd only just encountered. Given more time and resources, he could return with even greater capabilities. But that was a problem for another day. Right now, they had a more immediate threat to deal with. "We should get back to the convergence point," Ben suggested. Vilgax was just one piece of the puzzle. "Morlun and the Time Eater are still coming." Spider-Man nodded in agreement. "And based on the timetable Strange 838 gave us, the main event starts in less than 3 hours." As the Omnitrix finally recharged, Ben selected a flying transformation to transport them back to the convergence point. The confrontation with Vilgax had been challenging, but Ben couldn't shake the feeling that it was merely the opening act. The real battle, the one that would determine the fate of multiple universes, was yet to come. The convergence point had transformed dramatically during their absence. What had been an empty field was now a fortified position, with energy barriers, defensive emplacements, and assembled heroes forming concentric rings around the central area where the meteorite had struck centuries ago. Strange 838 stood at the very center, mystical energies flowing from his hands as he created complex protective sigils on the ground. Nearby, Wanda Maximoff's powers reinforced the dimensional barriers, her red energy intertwining with Strange's golden spellwork. Captain America greeted the returning team, his shield showing signs of recent combat. "Glad you made it back. We've had visitors, shadow hunters similar to what you encountered in Times Square. Strange believes they were testing our defenses. Vilgax is dealt with," Iron Man reported. "Back in his own dimension with his dimensional gateway destroyed." "What's the situation here?" "Deteriorating," Steve replied grimly. "The dimensional fabric is weakening by the minute. Strange says we're approaching what he calls convergence critical mass, the point where the barriers between universes become too thin to maintain separation." Ben surveyed the assembled heroes, Avengers, X-Men, and others he didn't recognize, all preparing for a battle unlike any they'd faced before. "Have you heard anything from my universe? Any contact from Gwen or the others?" Steve shook his head. "Nothing direct, but Strange 838 says he can sense activity on the other side, someone fighting against the weakening barriers, trying to reinforce them." "That would be Gwen and Paradox," Ben confirmed. "If they got my warning about Ian, they'll be confronting him directly." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden fluctuation in the energy field surrounding the convergence point. The sky above darkened unnaturally, clouds swirling in patterns that defied meteorological explanation. "It's starting," Strange 838 announced, approaching the group. "The dimensional alignment is reaching its peak earlier than anticipated. Morlun will attempt to break through soon, creating an anchor point for the Time Eater." Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling through available transformations. "I'm ready. Just tell me which form would be most effective against them." Strange 838 studied the device thoughtfully. "Against Morlun, energy-based forms would be counterproductive, he feeds on that power. Physical combat with minimal dimensional discharge would be optimal. Against the Time Eater." He hesitated. "Nothing in your arsenal would be truly effective alone. The Time Eater exists partially outside normal spacetime." "Encouraging," Spider-Man muttered. "But," Strange 838 continued, "the Omnitrix itself might be our most potent weapon. Not for its transformative capabilities, but for its unique dimensional properties. If we could recalibrate it to emit a specific frequency, it could disrupt the Time Eater's manifestation, Ben realized. Like feedback in a sound system. Precisely, Strange 838 confirmed. But such recalibration would be dangerous, potentially fatal to the wielder if improperly executed. Before they could discuss this further, a tremendous crack split the air, like reality itself being torn apart. Above the convergence point, the sky seemed to fold inward, creating a massive rift unlike the smaller tiers they'd encountered previously. Through this grand opening stepped Morlun, his pale features set in a predatory smile as he surveyed the assembled heroes. Behind him, shadowy figures moved within the rift, hundreds of hunters, ready to spill into this reality. The preparations are complete, Morlun announced, his voice carrying unnaturally across the field. The way is open, and the feast begins. Strange 838 stepped forward, mystical shields forming around his hands. Morlun. You know not what you serve. The Time Eater will consume you as readily as any other. Morlun laughed, the sound chilling in its certainty. I have been promised preservation, sorcerer. My service ensures my survival when the consumption begins. His red eyes fixed on Ben. And the Omnitrix wielder will provide the final key. Not happening, Ben declared, selecting a transformation. Green light enveloped him as he changed into a tall, red-skinned, four-armed alien. 4 arms, he announced, flexing his multiple limbs. Let's see how you handle someone who hits back. Around them, the defensive perimeter activated as shadow hunters poured from the rift. Heroes engaged immediately, powers and abilities flaring against the otherworldly invaders. The battle for multiversal survival had begun. Morlun moved with frightening speed, bypassing several heroes to target Ben directly. 4 arms met the charge head-on, his 4 massive arms striking in coordinated attacks that would have pulverized ordinary opponents. But Morlun was far from ordinary. He caught 2 of 4 arms' punches mid-swing, his strength matching the Tetraman form with disturbing ease. Physical power. Morlun hissed, his grip tightening painfully. Better than energy, but still insufficient. With a sudden twist, he hurled 4 arms across the battlefield, sending him crashing through an energy barrier. Spider-Man swung into the breach, firing impact webbing that briefly entangled Morlun before the hunter tore through it. Remember me? Spider-Man taunted, keeping Morlun's attention while 4 arms recovered. Last time we danced, it didn't end well for you. Morlun snarled, centuries-old hatred flaring in his eyes. The spider totem. Twice you have escaped me. There will not be a third time. Their battle joined the chaos spreading across the convergence point. Iron Man and War Machine provided aerial support, their weapons effective against the Shadow Hunters but barely slowing Morlun's advance. Captain America coordinated ground forces, his tactical experience proving invaluable as heroes adapted to the strange physics of interdimensional combat. 4 arms rejoined the fight, changing tactics to focus on speed rather than raw power. Working in concert with Spider-Man, they managed to land significant blows against Morlun, driving him back temporarily. But the dimensional vampire was merely testing them, assessing their capabilities before committing fully to the attack. With a sudden burst of speed, he evaded their coordinated strike and reached out, his hand closing around the Omnitrix symbol on 4 arms' shoulder. The power source, Morlun growled, his touch causing the Omnitrix to spark violently. The final component. 4 arms roared in pain as Morlun began drawing energy directly from the Omnitrix, the device's failsafes overwhelmed by the dimensional vampire's unique abilities. Green light flickered erratically around them as the transformation destabilized. Ben. Spider-Man launched himself forward, only to be intercepted by shadow hunters that materialized in his path. Strange 838 recognized what was happening and abandoned his position defending against the rift expansion. Golden energy wrapped around his hands as he cast a separation spell, trying to break Morlun's connection to the Omnitrix. You're killing him, the sorcerer warned. The dimensional discharge will overwhelm his human form. Morlun smiled coldly. A necessary sacrifice for what comes next. The sky above darkened further as the rift expanded, revealing something vast and incomprehensible moving within, a presence that defied description, existing between states of matter and energy. The Time Eater was approaching the threshold between dimensions. In that critical moment, when all seemed lost, a new rift opened, smaller, more controlled, its energy signature distinctly different from the chaotic tier Morlun had created. Through this precise opening stepped three figures Ben recognized immediately: Gwen Tennyson, her hands glowing with mana energy; Kevin Levin, his body partially transformed to absorb nearby materials; and Professor Paradox, his timeless eyes surveying the battlefield with calm assessment. "Ben!" Gwen called, immediately sensing her cousin's distress. She fired a concentrated mana blast at Morlun, forcing him to release his grip on the Omnitrix. Forearms collapsed to his knees, the transformation flickering unstably before reverting to human form in a flash of green light. Ben gasped for breath, the Omnitrix smoking slightly on his wrist. Perfect timing, he managed weakly as Kevin helped him to his feet. "Timing is rather my specialty," Paradox noted with characteristic understatement. His expression grew serious as he gazed upward at the expanding rift. "Though in this case, we may be cutting it rather close." Morlun recovered quickly from Gwen's attack, his expression darkening as he recognized the new arrivals. More interdimensional travelers. It changes nothing. The Time Eater comes, and all realities will bow before its hunger. "About that," Paradox replied calmly. "I believe you'll find your master's plans have been somewhat derailed." From the rift Paradox's group had created emerged one final figure, a familiar green-skinned being barely 4 inches tall, hovering on an anti-gravity platform. Despite his diminutive stature, his presence immediately commanded attention from everyone on the battlefield. "Azimuth!" Ben exclaimed, recognizing the creator of the Omnitrix. The Galvan genius surveyed the chaotic battlefield with evident disapproval. "As usual, Tennyson, you've managed to complicate what should have been a simple interdimensional excursion." "Simple?" Ben protested weakly. "I fell through a random rift." "Random?" Azimuth scoffed, directing his platform toward Ben. "The rift was precisely calculated by Ian to deliver you to this specific universe at this specific time. You were maneuvered here as surely as a game piece on a board." Morlun, recognizing the threat Azimuth represented, charged toward the Galvan with deadly intent. Gwen intercepted him with a mana shield while Kevin, having absorbed nearby metal, engaged directly. "Keep him busy," Azimuth instructed as he reached Ben. "The Omnitrix requires immediate recalibration." "Recalibration?" Ben questioned as Azimuth connected a small device to the Omnitrix. "What are you, saving multiple universes?" Azimuth interrupted tersely. "The dimensional discharge Morlun forced from the Omnitrix has destabilized its core matrix. Left unchecked, it would create a cascade failure that would tear holes between all connected realities." Around them, the battle intensified. Strange 838 and Paradox worked in tandem, their combined knowledge of dimensional mechanics allowing them to slow the Time Eater's approach. Gwen and the assembled heroes fought Morlun and his shadow hunters with everything they had, but the dimensional vampire's power continued to grow as the convergence reached its peak. "There," Azimuth declared, finishing his adjustments to the Omnitrix. "I've recalibrated the core to emit a countering frequency to the Time Eater's dimensional signature. When activated, it will create a harmonic disruption that should force it back beyond the dimensional threshold." "Should?" Ben questioned. 95% probability of success, Azimuth clarified. "The alternative is multiversal collapse, so I'd say the odds are acceptable." "And what do I need to do?" Azimuth's expression grew somber. "Reach the center of the convergence point, where the meteorite struck centuries ago. Transform into your most powerful form, and overload the Omnitrix's dimensional capacitors. The resulting discharge, properly calibrated, will seal all the rifts simultaneously." "And the Time Eater?" Without an anchor in this dimension, it will be forced back into the void between universes, Azimuth explained. But Ben, his tone grew unusually gentle, the process will place tremendous strain on your body. The dimensional energy will flow through you before being redirected. Ben understood the unspoken warning. Will I survive it? Azimuth hesitated. Unknown. No human has ever channeled that much dimensional energy. Ben looked across the battlefield, at Spider-Man fighting alongside Gwen, at Iron Man coordinating with Kevin, at heroes from two universes united against a common threat. His decision wasn't difficult. Then we better make it count, he declared, rising to his feet with renewed determination. What form should I use? Automix would provide the necessary energy output, Azimuth suggested. But the control required might be beyond even my calculations. Ben nodded, understanding. I have something better. Something I've only used a few times because it's too powerful to control easily. Azimuth's eyes widened as he realized what Ben meant. Alien X. Are you certain you can convince the personalities to cooperate in time? I'll have to, Ben replied. It's our best shot. With Azimuth's recalibration complete, Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling to the celestial transformation. The device seemed to hum with anticipation, its energy signature shifting to match Azimuth's adjustments. I need to reach the center, Ben told Spider-Man, who had rejoined them after driving back a group of shadow hunters. Say no more, Spider-Man replied, understanding the urgency. I'll clear a path. Together with Gwen, Kevin, and Iron Man, they fought their way toward the center of the convergence point. Morlun, sensing their intent, redoubled his efforts to stop them, but the combined might of heroes from two universes kept him engaged on multiple fronts. As they neared the center, Strange 838 and Paradox created a temporary dimensional bubble, a protected space where time flowed differently, buying precious seconds for what needed to be done. The convergence reaches its apex in moments, Paradox warned. Whatever you're planning, Ben, it must be now. Ben nodded, standing at the exact spot where the meteorite had struck centuries ago. He could feel the dimensional energy swirling around him, the barriers between universes paper-thin at this precise location. Everyone clear the area, he instructed. This is going to get intense. As his friends and allies withdrew to a safer distance, Ben took a deep breath, centered himself, and activated the Omnitrix one final time. Going ultimate hero. Green light enveloped him, but unlike his usual transformations, this one seemed to bend reality itself around him. Where Ben had stood, a new form took shape, a humanoid figure composed of what appeared to be living space, its body a window into the cosmos itself, with stars, galaxies, and nebulae visible within its silhouette. Alien X, the celestial being announced, its voice echoing with multiple overlapping tones. Inside the mind of Alien X, Ben found himself in the familiar cosmic void, facing the two personalities that shared control of this form, Serena, representing voice of love and compassion, and Vilgax, representing voice of rage and aggression. Ben Tennyson, Vilgax greeted him gruffly. Once again you come to us only when catastrophe looms. The Time Eater approaches, Serena observed, her tone gentler but equally concerned. A being even we must respect. I need your help, Ben stated directly. We need to overload the Omnitrix's dimensional capacitors to create a countering frequency. It's the only way to stop the Time Eater and seal the rifts. Such action risks our own existence, Vilgax objected. The dimensional discharge could destabilize even Alien X's form. The alternative is worse, Ben argued. Multiple universes, trillions of lives, wiped from existence. We have the power to prevent that. Serena considered his words. The boy speaks truth. We are uniquely positioned to act. And what of the cost to you, Ben Tennyson? Vilgax demanded. The energy will flow through your consciousness. Even if Alien X survives, your human mind may not. Ben hesitated only briefly. Some risks are worth taking. Isn't that why I was chosen to wield the Omnitrix in the first place? To make these kinds of choices? The two personalities exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. Motion to grant Ben Tennyson temporary full control of Alien X's powers for the purpose of dimensional stabilization, Serena proposed formally. Seconded, Vilgax agreed, surprising Ben with his ready cooperation. But know this, Tennyson, what comes next will test the limits of even your remarkable will. I understand, Ben replied. And I'm ready. With that, control of Alien X transferred fully to Ben, a rare consensus that granted him access to the celestial being's reality-altering capabilities without the usual debate and negotiation. Outside, in the physical world, only seconds had passed. Alien X raised its arms, cosmic energy swirling around its form as Ben directed the Omnitrix to begin the overload sequence. The recalibrated device responded immediately, dimensional energy flowing through the celestial transformation in precisely the pattern Azimuth had calculated. The Omnitrix wielder. Morlun shouted, breaking free from his opponents to charge toward Alien X. Stop him. But it was too late. The overload had begun, dimensional energy cascading through Alien X's form and radiating outward in concentric waves. The first wave caught Morlun mid-stride, the precisely calibrated frequency disrupting his dimensional connection and causing him to howl in agony. The shadow hunters dissipated like smoke in a strong wind, their pseudo-physical forms unable to maintain cohesion against the dimensional pulse. The smaller rifts throughout the battlefield began closing, reality stitching itself back together as the countering frequency reinforced the natural dimensional barriers. Above, the massive rift through which the Time Eater had nearly emerged shuddered violently. The incomprehensible presence beyond recoiled from the energy signature, its vast consciousness recognizing a fundamental threat to its manifestation. Inside Alien X, Ben fought to maintain control as dimensional energy coursed through his consciousness. The pain was indescribable, like having every atom of his being simultaneously pulled in different directions across multiple universes. He could feel his grip on reality slipping, his human mind struggling to process sensations no human was ever meant to experience. Hold on, Tennyson. Vilgax's voice seemed distant now. The process is nearly complete. Your consciousness is fragmenting, Serena warned. We cannot maintain your pattern much longer. Ben could barely form coherent thoughts now, but one certainty remained, he needed to complete what he'd started. With the last of his willpower, he directed Alien X to channel every ounce of the dimensional discharge into a final, concentrated pulse. The resulting blast of energy radiated outward from the convergence point, a shock wave of dimensional force that expanded in all directions. The main rift collapsed in on itself, the Time Eater's presence forced back beyond the dimensional threshold. Morlun, caught in the wave's epicenter, screamed as he too was pulled back through the diminishing opening, banished to the void between universes. As the final rift sealed, Alien X stood alone at the center of the convergence point, cosmic energy still swirling around its form. Then, without warning, green light enveloped the celestial being as the transformation reversed. When it faded, Ben Tennyson collapsed to the ground, unconscious. The Omnitrix on his wrist pulsed weakly, its faceplate cycling between green and red as its systems attempted to stabilize after the tremendous energy discharge. Ben! Gwen cried, rushing to her cousin's side. Her hands glowed with mana energy as she assessed his condition. His life force is fading. The dimensional energy, it's torn through his system. Spider-Man knelt beside them, his mask's lenses widening in concern. Is there anything we can do? Azimuth approached, his hovering platform descending to position him near Ben's wrist. The Omnitrix is attempting to repair the damage, but the process is beyond its standard capabilities. The dimensional energy has scattered portions of his consciousness across multiple realities. Then we bring those portions back, Strange 838 declared, joining them. His hands already weaving complex mystical patterns. A soul retrieval across dimensional boundaries. Combined with a temporal stasis field, Paradox added, his time manipulation device activating. To prevent further degradation while the retrieval occurs. And a mana reinforcement to anchor his core essence, Gwen continued, pink energy flowing from her hands to envelop Ben's still form. The assembled heroes watched in somber silence as the three-dimensional experts, a sorcerer, a time walker, and a magic wielder, combined their unique abilities in a desperate attempt to save Ben's life. Their energies intertwined around his unconscious form, creating a shimmering cocoon of interdimensional forces. "It's working," Asmith observed after several tense minutes, monitoring the Omnitrix's readings. "The fragmented consciousness is reassembling. Slowly, but definitely." The cocoon of energy pulsed rhythmically, each wave bringing more color back to Ben's pale features. The Omnitrix stabilized as well, its faceplate returning to a steady green glow as its system synchronized with its wielder's recovering life force. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Ben's eyes fluttered open. He gasped, drawing in a deep breath as if surfacing from underwater. "Did we win?" he asked weakly, his voice barely above a whisper. Gwen laughed through tears of relief. "Yes, you idiot. We won. The rifts are closed, the Time Eater is banished, and Morlun went with it." Ben managed a tired smile. "Worth it then." Spider-Man helped him sit up slowly. "That was either the bravest or craziest thing I've ever seen." "Probably both." "A fairly accurate summary of most of Tennyson's career," Asmith commented dryly, though relief was evident in his tone. As Ben regained his strength, supported by friends from both universes, he surveyed the aftermath of the battle. The convergence point was scorched and cratered, evidence of the dimensional energies that had raged across it. Heroes tended to their wounded, the combined forces from two universes having fought side by side against a common threat. "What about Ian?" Ben asked suddenly, remembering the architect behind his interdimensional journey. "Neutralized," Paradox assured him. "Your warning allowed us to intercept him at the Bellwood Observatory before he could complete his part of the ritual. He's been contained in a manner fitting for a rogue temporal entity." "And Vilgax?" Ben questioned, recalling how the warlord had escaped back to their universe. "Retreated to the null void after finding his plans disrupted," Kevin reported with a satisfied grin. "The plumbers are tracking him, but my guess is he'll lay low for a while after this failure." Tony Stark approached, his armor showing significant battle damage but his characteristic confidence intact. "So, dimensional crisis averted, multiversal vampire banished, time-eating monster sent packing. Not bad for a few days' work." "Just another Tuesday," Ben quipped weakly, earning chuckles from those who understood the running joke. Strange 838 created a small portal, peering through it at what appeared to be his home universe. "The dimensional barriers are restabilizing across the multiverse. My work here is complete." He turned to Ben with newfound respect. "You've done something remarkable today, Ben Tennyson. Few beings in any universe could have channeled that much dimensional energy and survived." "I had help," Ben replied modestly, glancing at those who had saved his life. As the immediate crisis subsided and recovery efforts began, the inevitable question arose: what next? Ben looked to Paradox and Asmith, the two beings most capable of returning him home. "So, can I go back now?" he asked hesitantly. "Not that it hasn't been great meeting everyone," he added quickly, gesturing to the Marvel heroes around him, "but I do kind of miss my own universe." Paradox checked his pocket watch thoughtfully. "The dimensional pathways are still settling after such significant disruption. Travel between universes should be possible, but I'd recommend waiting approximately 24 hours for optimal stability." "One more day in the Marvel Universe," Spider-Man noted. "Could be worse places to be stuck." Tony clapped a hand on Ben's shoulder. "Consider yourself an honorary Avenger in the meantime. We've got plenty of room at the compound, and after what you just pulled off, I think you've earned a proper celebration." The offer was tempting, and Ben found himself genuinely touched by the camaraderie that had developed in such a short time. These fictional characters he'd read about in comics had become real friends, fighting alongside him against impossible odds. "I'd like that," he agreed with a tired smile. One more day as a Marvel hero. As the assembled heroes began making their way back to the Avengers compound, Ben fell into step beside Spider-Man, the first ally he'd made in this strange universe. "You know," Spider-Man said conversationally, "in your universe, I'm just a comic book character. In mine, until a few days ago, you didn't exist at all. And yet here we are, saving the multiverse together." Ben nodded, understanding the philosophical weight of the observation. Makes you wonder how many other universes are out there, with their own heroes facing their own impossible challenges. Infinite universes, infinite possibilities, Spider-Man agreed. But some things stay constant. Heroes being heroes, Ben concluded. No matter what universe they're in. As the sun set on the convergence point, the last traces of dimensional energy dissipating into the evening air, Ben Tennyson found himself reflecting on the strange journey that had brought him here. What had begun as an accidental fall through dimensions had evolved into a multiversal crisis that threatened reality itself. Yet through it all, he discovered that heroism transcended universal boundaries. Different powers, different challenges, different worlds, but the same core values that defined what it meant to be a hero. For one more day, Ben 10 would be part of the Marvel Universe. And while he looked forward to returning home, he knew this experience would forever change how he viewed his own reality and his place within it. Some adventures changed you. This one had changed universes. Chapter 3, Reality's Edge. Ben woke to the strange feeling of being in two places at once. The guest quarters at the Avengers compound felt solid enough, comfortable bed, morning sunlight streaming through reinforced windows, the distant hum of advanced technology. But overlapping this reality, he caught glimpses of somewhere else, his bedroom back in Bellwood, familiar posters on walls that simultaneously did and didn't exist. "That's new," he muttered, rubbing his eyes. The dual vision persisted. He lifted his wrist to check the Omnitrix. The device pulsed with an irregular rhythm, occasionally flickering between its standard green glow and something more unstable, as if it couldn't quite decide which universe it belonged to. A knock at his door pulled his attention back to the Marvel reality. "Come in." Spider-Man, Peter Parker, entered, already dressed in his suit minus the mask. His expression shifted from casual to concerned when he noticed Ben's unfocused gaze. "You okay? You look like you're seeing ghosts." "Not ghosts. Bellwood." Ben stood, steadying himself against the wall. "I'm seeing my home universe overlaid on this one." Peter's eyes widened. "That sounds, not good. Like, multiversal breakdown not good." "Yeah, figured as much." Ben tapped the Omnitrix. "And this thing's acting weird too. Like it's trying to exist in both places simultaneously. We should get you to the lab." Tony and Shuri were running final diagnostics on the dimensional stabilizers all night. As they walked through the compound, Ben noticed he wasn't the only one experiencing the phenomenon. Vision stood motionless in a corridor, his synthetic eyes tracking something invisible to others. Wanda Maximoff sat cross-legged in the common area, red energy swirling defensively around her as she whispered, "The barriers are thinning." The main laboratory buzzed with activity. Tony Stark and Shuri worked at opposite stations, holographic models spinning between them. Azimuth occupied a specially modified workstation, his tiny galvan form dwarfed by adapted tools. Professor Paradox observed from nearby, his perpetual calm somehow more unsettling than reassuring. "Ah, Ben," Paradox greeted, checking his pocket watch. "Right on schedule, despite there being very little schedule left to adhere to." "What's happening?" Ben asked bluntly. "I'm seeing my universe overlapping with this one." "Dimensional bleed," Azimuth stated without looking up from his work. The convergence event was stopped, but not before significant damage occurred to the barriers between realities. Tony projected a new model into the center of the lab, a visualization of two spheres representing universes, with troubling distortions where they intersected. "Think of it like two soap bubbles touching," Tony explained. "They maintain separation at first, but now they're merging. At our current rate of dimensional decay. He hesitated. Total collapse within 18 hours, Shuri finished for him. Both universes will catastrophically merge, destroying the unique physical laws that sustain each reality. Ben felt his stomach drop. So stopping the Time Eater merely prevented immediate consumption, Paradox confirmed. The damage was already done. The dimensional barriers must be properly repaired, not just patched. Am I going home today? Azimuth finally looked up, his large eyes solemn. Impossible under current conditions. Conventional travel between universes would only accelerate the collapse. The lab fell silent as the implications sank in. After everything they'd accomplished, stopping Vilgax, banishing Morlun, driving back the Time Eater, they now faced a more insidious threat, the gradual unraveling of reality itself. There has to be a solution, Ben insisted. Some way to separate the universes before they completely merge. There is, Azimuth confirmed. But it requires accessing the dimensional nexus point, the precise location where our universes are connected at their most fundamental level. And where exactly is that? Peter asked. Nowhere and everywhere, Paradox answered cryptically. The nexus exists between realities, not within either one. Accessing it would require. A thunderous boom interrupted him as the compound's alert system activated. Red emergency lights pulsed as Friday's voice came over the speakers. Multiple dimensional anomalies detected. Breach in progress at the north perimeter. Tony's armor assembled around him instantly. Of course. Because we haven't had enough interdimensional visitors this week. Suit up, he told the others. Whatever's coming through, it picked the wrong day and the wrong reality to invade. The north perimeter of the Avengers compound had transformed into something impossible. Half the landscape remained normal, manicured grounds, security barriers, training facilities. But the other half had been replaced by a twisted version of Bellwood. Buildings Ben recognized from his hometown now stood where trees had been moments before. And emerging from this dimensional overlap came a sight that made Ben's blood run cold. Vilgax, fully restored and upgraded, leading an army of drones more advanced than any Ben had seen before. But the warlord wasn't alone. Beside him strode a figure clad in green armor and a hooded cape, his metal face concealed behind an imposing mask. Dr. Doom, Spider-Man identified the newcomer, landing beside Ben at the perimeter's edge. Vilgax definitely made a friend. An alliance of convenience, Tony added, hovering above them in his Iron Man armor. Doom doesn't play well with others unless there's something significant to gain. Captain America joined them, shield at the ready. What's our play? Ben activated the Omnitrix, which stabilized momentarily. I'll handle Vilgax. I've got the most experience fighting him. Doom is mine, Tony declared. Old grudges. The rest of us will contain the drones and secure the perimeter, Cap decided. Prevent anything else from coming through that breach. Ben selected a transformation, slamming down the Omnitrix dial. Green light engulfed him, restructuring his DNA into a crystalline humanoid with sharp, diamond-like features. Diamond Head. The Petrosapien form gleamed in the morning light as Ben charged toward his longtime nemesis. Vilgax spotted him immediately. Tennyson. Your interference ends today. The warlord had changed since their last encounter. His armor incorporated elements of Doom's technology, magical enhancements glowing alongside his cybernetic implants. The combination made him more formidable than ever. New look, Vilgax. Diamond Head taunted, firing crystal shards that his opponent deflected with a force field. The magic accessories are a bit much, even for you. Mock while you can, Vilgax snarled. Your pet heroes cannot save you from what comes next. Their battle erupted across the dimensional boundary, one moment fighting on Avengers grounds, the next crashing through the phantom streets of Bellwood. Each transition felt jarring, reality itself protesting the impossible overlap. Meanwhile, Iron Man engaged Dr. Doom directly, repulsor blasts meeting magical shields in explosive confrontations. "Really, Victor?" Tony called over the comm system. "Teaming up with a squid-faced alien warlord? That's beneath even your usual standards." Doom's voice carried the aristocratic arrogance that defined him. "This alliance serves a greater purpose, Stark. The merging realities provide unprecedented access to new scientific and mystical frontiers." "You're accelerating universal collapse," Tony countered, dodging a magic bolt. "Even you can't rule over nothing." "Collapse?" Doom laughed coldly. "No. Transformation. The dimensional energies released will forge a new reality, one with myself and Vilgax as its architects." Across the battlefield, heroes from both universes fought against the invasion. Gwen Tennyson and Scarlet Witch combined magical attacks, their powers complementing each other perfectly. Kevin, having absorbed vibranium from a damaged section of fencing, fought alongside Black Panther with identical enhanced capabilities. Spider-Man webbed drone after drone, his movements becoming increasingly difficult to track as he, too, began phasing between realities. Diamondhead found himself outmatched against Vilgax's upgraded capabilities. A powerful energy blast shattered his crystalline arm, which reformed slowly, the process hindered by the unstable dimensional environment. "The Omnitrix, boy," Vilgax demanded. "Surrender it now, and I may allow your friends to live as subjects rather than experiments in our new combined universe." "Never gonna happen," Diamondhead growled, slapping the Omnitrix symbol to transform again. Green light flashed, but something unexpected occurred. The transformation sequence stuttered, energy patterns fluctuating wildly as the Omnitrix responded to the dimensional instability. When the light faded, Ben stood transformed into a form he'd never seen before, a humanoid composed of swirling energy, with a body that seemed to exist partially in both universes simultaneously. "Whoa," Ben examined his new hands, which phased in and out of solidity. "This is different." The Omnitrix symbol on his chest pulsed with unusual patterns. "New transformation unlocked, Phasetrix. Dimensional adaptation in progress." "Impossible," Vilgax faltered momentarily. "The Omnitrix cannot create new alien forms spontaneously." Ben felt the capabilities of this new form intuitively, able to exist between states of reality, to move through dimensional boundaries as easily as stepping through a doorway. He focused his energy and phased directly behind Vilgax, solidifying just enough to deliver a powerful energy punch. Surprise! The impact sent Vilgax crashing into a half-real, half-phantom building. "Looks like the Omnitrix is adapting to fix the mess you and your new friend made." Across the battlefield, Tony noticed the new transformation. Friday, analysis. Unknown entity composition, the AI responded. Subject exists simultaneously in multiple dimensional phases. Energy signature suggests partial quantum superposition. In English, he exists in both universes at once, boss. This revelation spread quickly through the team's communications. Asmitha's voice cut through the channel. "This confirms my theory. The Omnitrix is adapting to bridge the dimensional gap, becoming a stabilizing force rather than just a transformation tool." "Can it fix this?" Cap asked, deflecting drone fire with his shield. "Potentially," Asmith replied. "But the process appears incomplete. Ben needs to reach the nexus point for full dimensional recalibration." Dr. Doom, overhearing this exchange through hacked communications, turned his attention toward Ben's new form. "The Nexus Catalyst," he observed coldly. "Vilgax, secure the Omnitrix wielder immediately." The combined forces of Doom and Vilgax converged on Ben's position. Drones, Doombots, and mystically enhanced weapons all targeted the newly transformed Phasetrix. Ben phased through most attacks, but the sheer volume eventually overwhelmed his defenses. An energy net, designed specifically to trap beings existing in multiple dimensions, entangled him. "Got you," Vilgax declared triumphantly, approaching the struggling hero. Your new form makes you the perfect conduit for our plans. Let him go. Spider-Man swung in, followed by Gwen's mana blasts and Iron Man's repulsors. Their combined attack forced Vilgax and Doom to fall back temporarily. Gwen helped Ben break free from the energy net. That new alien, I can barely sense it with my mana. It's like you're only partially here. Tell me about it, Ben replied, his voice echoing strangely. I can see both universes at once, and something else beyond them both. The Nexus, Paradox stated, suddenly appearing beside them in his usual time-bending fashion. Your new form is attuned to it. This may be exactly what we need. Need for what? Ben asked. To reach the dimensional core and separate our universes before complete collapse. The battle paused as reality itself seemed to hiccup, buildings, trees, and landscape features from both universes rapidly alternating positions. The phenomenon lasted only seconds but left everyone disoriented. Time grows short, Paradox warned. The dimensional membranes are rupturing faster than anticipated. Tony landed beside them, his armor showing battle damage. We need a new strategy. Doom and Vilgax are specifically trying to accelerate the collapse. They've set up some kind of catalyst device at the original convergence point. It's a dimensional forge, Azimuth explained over the communications link. Designed to harness the energy released during universal collision to create a pocket reality they can control. Can we destroy it? Cap asked. Not directly, Azimuth replied. Any conventional attack would trigger premature collapse. We need to neutralize it from the nexus point itself. Ben looked down at his energy-based form, understanding dawning. And that's where I come in. Precisely, Paradox confirmed. Your new transformation can traverse the barrier between realities. With proper calibration, the Omnitrix could potentially separate our universes and seal the breach permanently. But we'd need to get past Doom and Vilgax first, Spider-Man pointed out. Iron Man's faceplate retracted, revealing Tony's determined expression. Then that's what we'll do. Full team assault, everything we've got. Create an opening for Ben to reach the convergence point. As the heroes regrouped and planned their counterattack, Ben experienced another vision, clearer than before. Through Phasetrix's dimensional awareness, he glimpsed the nexus point itself, a swirling vortex of pure reality stuff, neither Marvel nor Ben 10 universe, but the fundamental connection between them. And at its center, a critical instability, the dimensional equivalent of a wound that needed healing. Guys, Ben called their attention. I can see it. The nexus. And I think I know what needs to be done. The counterattack began at noon, the sun directly overhead illuminating the increasingly unstable landscape. Reality fluctuations had increased in frequency, trees transforming into buildings mid-battle, the ground itself shifting between different compositions. The Avengers led the charge, with Captain America directing a coordinated assault on Doom's position. Black Panther and Black Widow targeted drone control systems. Hulk and Thor, who had arrived from off-world after detecting the dimensional disturbances, provided overwhelming force against Doom's mystical barriers. From Ben's universe, Gwen, Kevin, and a squad of plumber agents that had crossed over during a fluctuation engaged Vilgax's forces. Their familiarity with the warlord's tactics proved invaluable in countering his advanced weaponry. Ben, still in his Phasetrix form, moved alongside Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Doctor Strange, 838, who had returned upon detecting the critical dimensional degradation. Their task, reach the convergence point where Doom and Vilgax had established their forge. The molecular structure of reality itself is unraveling, Strange, 838 observed as they approached. Even the ancient Vishanti would struggle to repair such damage. Good thing we've got something better than ancient magic, Iron Man replied. We've got impossible alien tech and a kid too stubborn to let a universe die. Ben would have smiled if Phasetrix's energy form had discernible facial features. Flattery will get you everywhere, Stark. The convergence point had transformed dramatically since their previous battle. Where before it had been a simple field, it now resembled a modern art installation depicting dimensional collapse, impossible geometries, overlapping realities, and at its center, the Forge, a massive technological mystical hybrid device pulsing with ominous energy. Vilgax and Doom stood before it, overseeing final adjustments as reality warped around them. "We've got company," Vilgax growled, spotting their approach. Doom raised his hands, arcane symbols appearing in the air. "Let them come. Their arrival completes the final variable in our equation." "I really hate when villains sound pleased to see us," Spider-Man muttered, web shooters primed. The attack came from all sides, Doombots emerging from stealth positions, Vilgax's drones descending from above, and a particularly nasty surprise, hybrid creatures pulled from both universes, forcibly merged into chimeric monstrosities. "What the hell are those?" Iron Man demanded, blasting one that resembled half Chitauri, half DN alien. "Dimensional chimeras," Strange 838 identified them. "Beings caught between realities during fluctuations, merged into new forms. Can they be saved?" Ben asked, ducking under an attack. "If we stabilize the dimensions quickly enough, yes. If not." Strange left the implication hanging. The fighting intensified as they pushed toward the Forge. Strange 838 created mystical barriers against Doom's magical assaults. Iron Man and Spider-Man tag-teamed the drones with practiced efficiency. Ben used Phasetrix's dimensional phasing to bypass defenses entirely, slipping through solid matter and energy fields alike. As they neared the device, Vilgax intercepted Ben directly, his enhanced form moving with impossible speed. "The final component arrives," the Warlord declared, grabbing for Ben with gauntlets designed to trap phase-shifting beings. "Your new form is the perfect conductor for the Forge." Ben barely evaded, his energy body fluctuating wildly. "Not interested in being part of your universe-ending science project, Vilgax. You misunderstand." Vilgax's tone became almost conversational, a rarity that unnerved Ben more than his usual threats. "The universes are already doomed. Our Forge merely salvages what can be preserved, creates order from inevitable chaos. By making you and Doom gods of a pocket dimension. Hard pass." Their battle wove through reality fluctuations, both combatants experiencing jarring transitions between universes. One moment they fought on grassy field, the next on Bellwood asphalt, then on what appeared to be the quantum realm itself, subatomic particles swirling around them. From above, Iron Man engaged Doom directly, their technological and mystical arsenals creating spectacular light shows with each exchange. "Your plan ends here, Victor," Tony called, unleashing his uni-beam directly at Doom's chest plate. Doom absorbed the energy, redirecting it into a mystical construct. "You lack vision, Stark. This convergence is the scientific opportunity of a millennium. Pretty sure destroying two universes disqualifies you from the Scientific Ethics Committee." Spider-Man web-zipped between them, temporarily blinding Doom with impact webbing before narrowly avoiding a retaliatory blast. "Anyone else notice the fluctuations are getting worse?" He was right. The transitions between realities had accelerated, now occurring every few seconds. Buildings, landscape features, even parts of Latveria and Bellwood appeared and disappeared with nauseating frequency. Strange 838 floated above the chaos, his cloak billowing as he analyzed the Forge with mystical senses. "The device is approaching critical activation. We have minutes at most." Ben broke away from his fight with Vilgax, phasing through a barrage of attacks to reach his allies. "I need to get to the Nexus now. This form can't maintain cohesion much longer in this environment." The Omnitrix symbol on his chest pulsed erratically, confirming his assessment. Phasetrix's energy body flickered between states, the strain of existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously taking its toll. "We'll create an opening," Iron Man promised, his armor reconfiguring to its maximum offensive capacity. Strange, Spider-Man, priority is getting Ben to that Forge. What followed was a perfectly coordinated assault. Iron Man unleashed his entire weapons array against Doom's defenses. Spider-Man webbed Vilgax's cybernetic implants with specialized webbing developed during their previous encounters. Strange 838 opened a series of small portals around the forge, creating confusion and disrupting the device's energy pattern. The momentary advantage gave Ben the opening he needed. Pushing Phasetrix's abilities to their limit, he phased directly into the forge's central column, where dimensional energies converged. Inside the device, Ben found himself in a space between spaces, a swirling maelstrom of realities bleeding together. Through Phasetrix's unique perception, he could see the fundamental connections, threads of quantum probability linking his universe to the Marvel one, once separate but now hopelessly entangled. "I'm in position," he communicated, his voice distorted across multiple dimensional frequencies. "What now?" Asmatha's voice reached him, somehow cutting through the dimensional static. "The Omnitrix must recalibrate to separate the dimensional signatures. Focus on the distinct pattern of each universe, they must be sorted before they can be separated." Ben concentrated, letting Phasetrix's dimensional awareness expand. He could feel the unique flavor of each universe, his own reality with its specific physical laws and energy patterns, the Marvel universe with its distinct vibrations and mystical undercurrents. "I can sense them," he confirmed. "But they're too tangled. I can't separate them alone." Outside the forge, the battle had reached a critical stage. Doom had unleashed his most powerful mystical artifacts, creating a dome of energy that pushed back the heroes. Vilgax, recognizing the potential failure of their plan, had activated a contingency, a self-destruct sequence in the forge that would force complete dimensional collapse rather than allow separation. "Ben's trapped in there," Spider-Man shouted, dodging mystical blasts while trying to breach the dome. And Vilgax just triggered some kind of countdown. Iron Man's sensors confirmed the development. Detonation in 60 seconds. "If that thing blows while Ben's inside, total dimensional cascade," Strange 838 finished grimly. "Both universes destroyed instantly." Inside the forge, Ben felt the destabilization beginning. The already chaotic dimensional energies grew more violent, tearing at Phasetrix's form. The Omnitrix symbol flickered dangerously, warnings flashing across his awareness. Critical failure imminent. Dimensional overload detected. Ben made a desperate decision. "Asmath. The Omnitrix, can it share my transformation with others? Create a network to stabilize the dimensions?" A pause, then, theoretically possible. The Omnitrix contains prototype function, genetic distribution. Never tested. Highly experimental. How do I activate it? Secondary command sequence, Omnitrix code 1010 helix distribution. Ben focused on the symbol on his chest. Omnitrix, code 1010 helix distribution. The symbol pulsed brilliantly, green light radiating outward in concentric waves that passed through the forge's structure and expanded across the battlefield. As the energy touched each hero, something remarkable happened. The Omnitrix's power temporarily linked with them, granting aspects of Phasetrix's dimensional abilities. Spider-Man's costume shifted, green energy lines running through the red and blue fabric as he gained partial phase-shifting abilities. Iron Man's armor integrated the dimensional technology, his HUD suddenly displaying multiple reality overlays. Strange 838's mystical shields took on the characteristic green glow of the Omnitrix as his spells adapted to multidimensional casting. Beyond the immediate battle, other heroes experienced similar transformations. Gwen's mana energy intermingled with Omnitrix power, Kevin's absorption abilities expanded to include dimensional properties, Captain America's shield now capable of deflecting attacks across reality states. "What's happening?" Spider-Man asked, looking at his transformed suit in amazement. "Ben's sharing his transformation," Iron Man realized. "Creating a network of dimensional anchors." Inside the forge, Ben felt the connections forming, each hero becoming a node in a vast web that spanned both universes. Through this network, he could now perceive the distinct patterns more clearly, the tangled realities becoming distinguishable. "I can see it," he called out. "The separation point. Everyone, focus your energy toward me. Think about your home universe, its specific feel. The heroes complied, each concentrating on their native reality. As they did, Ben felt the dimensional energies responding, the patterns beginning to sort themselves, Marvel energies flowing one direction, Ben 10 universe energies another. But Doom and Vilgax weren't finished. Recognizing the threat to their plan, they launched a final, desperate attack. Doom channeled mystical energy directly into the forge, attempting to disrupt the separation process. Vilgax, his cybernetics now partially enhanced with Omnitrix energy, fought to reach the device's core where Ben resided. 30 seconds to detonation, Friday announced over Iron Man's comms. Dimensional containment failing. Ben felt the countdown through the forge's systems. If the device detonated before separation completed, both universes would be instantaneously destroyed. He needed more power, more focus. Then an unexpected ally joined the network, Dr. Doom himself, his systems involuntarily integrated through exposure to the Omnitrix energy. What is this? Doom demanded, suddenly finding his mystical energies redirected into Ben's separation effort. The thing about networking, Iron Man quipped, recognizing what had happened, is that sometimes you connect to things you didn't intend to. Doom's considerable power, now temporarily yoked to the Omnitrix network, provided the additional energy Ben needed. The dimensional patterns accelerated their separation, distinct universes emerging from the chaos. It's working. Ben called out. The universes are separating. But the forge, it's still counting down. 15 seconds, Friday updated. Ben made his final play, using Phaestrix's abilities to their absolute limit, he began absorbing the forge's detonation energy into himself, containing the imminent explosion. What are you doing? Strange 838 demanded, sensing the dimensional energies converging on Ben's form. Creating a dimensional buffer, Ben explained through gritted effort. When the universe is separate, the explosion needs somewhere to go. The implications weren't lost on his allies. Ben was positioning himself as a sacrifice, a container for the devastating energies that would otherwise destroy both realities. There has to be another way. Spider-Man protested. No time, Ben replied. The separation is almost complete. When it finishes, the Omnitrix network will dissolve. Everyone from my universe will be pulled back home, everyone from yours will stay here. And you? Iron Man asked, already knowing the answer. Someone has to stay in between. Just long enough to contain the detonation. The countdown reached 5 seconds. The dimensional separation had nearly completed, two distinct universal patterns now visible through the forge's structure, the tangled realities almost completely sorted. In that final moment, Ben felt a strange peace. The Omnitrix had chosen him years ago for a reason. Perhaps this had always been its purpose, not just to transform into aliens, but to save reality itself when the moment came. It's been an honor, Ben told his Marvel allies. Keep being heroes. 3, 2, 1. The forge detonated just as the dimensional separation completed. Ben, channeling all of Phaestrix's power, contained the explosion within his energy form. The last thing he saw was the realities pulling apart, Spider-Man, Iron Man, and the Marvel Universe receding in one direction, glimpses of Gwen, Kevin, and his home pulling away in another. And Ben Tennyson, in his final act as a multiversal hero, held the center as everything else fell away. Whiteness. Endless, perfect whiteness. Ben floated in a void between universes, no longer in his Phaestrix form but human again. The Omnitrix on his wrist pulsed with steady green light, seemingly unaffected by the dimensional catastrophe that should have destroyed him. Am I dead? He wondered aloud, his voice sounding flat in the dimensionless space. Not exactly, answered a familiar voice. Professor Paradox appeared beside him, looking completely at ease in the void. You exist in a state of dimensional suspension, neither in one universe nor another, but preserved in the space between. The explosion? Contained within a temporal bubble of my creation, Paradox explained. Your sacrifice bought me the nanosecond I needed to intervene. Ben looked around at the featureless expanse. So what now? I just float here forever. Oh, hardly. Paradox checked his pocket watch. Your action successfully separated the universes. The barriers are restabilizing as we speak. In approximately 30 seconds, you'll need to choose. Choose what? Which universe to return to, of course. Paradox gestured, and two windows appeared in the void, one showing Bellwood, where Gwen, Kevin, and Grandpa Max waited anxiously, the other displaying the Avengers compound, where Spider-Man, Iron Man, and the others monitored dimensional readings. I can go home? Ben asked, hope rising in his chest. Indeed. The Omnitrix has recorded the dimensional coordinates of both universes. You can return to either one permanently. Ben stared at the two windows, the choice surprisingly difficult. His home universe contained his family, his history, his responsibility as wielder of the Omnitrix. But the Marvel universe had shown him new possibilities, new allies, new ways to be a hero. What about visiting? Could I travel between them? Paradox's expression grew somber. I'm afraid not. The dimensional barriers nearly collapsed completely. To prevent future instability, they must be permanently reinforced. Whichever choice you make will be final. The weight of the decision settled on Ben's shoulders. Permanent. No going back. How long do I have to decide? About 15 seconds now. Paradox consulted his watch again. The dimensional suspension is collapsing. Ben looked between the windows once more. In the Marvel universe, he could start fresh, be part of a team of heroes unlike any in his world. In his home universe, he would return to the life and responsibilities he'd built over 9 years as Ben 10. In the end, the choice clarified itself in his mind. I'm going home, he decided firmly. My family, my team, they need me. And I need them. Paradox nodded, unsurprised. Very well. Though I should mention one interesting side effect of your dimensional adventure. What's that? The Omnitrix has permanently recorded the genetic samples it encountered in the Marvel universe. Certain adaptations may have occurred. Before Ben could ask for clarification, the whiteness began dissolving around him. The window showing Bellwood expanded, reality reasserting itself as Ben Tennyson returned to his proper universe. His last glimpse of the void showed Paradox smiling enigmatically before time and space rushed back into normal focus. Ben. Gwen's voice was the first thing he heard as reality solidified around him. He found himself standing in Plumber headquarters beneath Bellwood, surrounded by monitoring equipment and concerned faces. Gwen threw her arms around him, followed quickly by Kevin's more reserved but equally relieved shoulder clasp. You made it back, Grandpa Max said, emotion thick in his grizzled voice. When the dimensional reading stabilized but you didn't immediately appear. Had a brief stopover in nowhere space, Ben explained, steadying himself against a console. Paradox gave me a choice. A choice? Kevin asked. Stay there or come back here. Ben looked around at the familiar surroundings, the alien technology, the Plumber agents, the family that had supported his hero journey from the beginning. Wasn't really much of a contest. Azimuth teleported onto the console beside him, the Galvan's expression inscrutable as always. The Omnitrix readings are stabilizing. Its dimensional adaptations appear permanent, however. Yeah, Paradox mentioned something about that. What exactly changed? The device has incorporated genetic samples from the alternate universe, Azimuth explained. And more significantly, it has developed new functionality, the ability to temporarily share transformation aspects with others. The network, Ben realized. During the final battle, when I connected everyone. A feature I had theorized but never implemented, Azimuth admitted. The crisis forced the Omnitrix to evolve beyond its original design parameters. Ben examined the device on his wrist with newfound appreciation. So I've got Marvel DNA in here now? Spider-Man, Hulk, that kind of thing. Theoretically, Azimuth confirmed. Though I would advise caution when exploring these new transformations. The dimensional properties remain somewhat unstable. The implications would take time to process fully. Ben had returned home, but he'd brought pieces of the Marvel Universe with him, new abilities, new possibilities, new ways to be a hero. What about the other side? Ben asked. Did everyone make it back okay? Gwen nodded. All accounted for. Vilgax is in maximum security containment, and Ian has been locked in a temporal prison by Paradox. The dimensional tears have completely healed. And the Marvel Universe? Stable, according to our last readings before separation completed, Max reported. Though we can no longer monitor it directly. Ben felt a pang of regret at the finality of the separation. He'd made friends there, fought alongside legendary heroes, experienced another world of possibilities. And now, he would never see them again. They'll be fine, he said, more to himself than the others. They're heroes. It's what they do. 1 week later, Ben stood atop a hill overlooking Bellwood. The city had returned completely to normal, no trace remaining of the dimensional crisis that had nearly destroyed it. Citizens went about their daily lives, blissfully unaware of how close they'd come to non-existence. The Omnitrix on his wrist looked the same as always, but Ben could feel the changes within it, new transformations waiting to be explored, new abilities developed through his dimensional journey. Penny for your thoughts, Gwen said, joining him on the hilltop. Just thinking about them, Ben admitted. Wonder what they're doing right now. Probably the same as us, protecting their world, one crisis at a time. Ben smiled at that. Some things remained constant across universes. Want to see something cool? He asked, activating the Omnitrix. The holographic display showed his usual aliens, but among them were new silhouettes, forms with distinctly Marvel-inspired features. Are those? Yep. According to Azimuth, the Omnitrix sampled and recorded DNA patterns from the other universe. Modified them to work with the transformation system. Ben selected one and pressed down the dial. Green light enveloped him, and when it faded, a new form stood in his place, humanoid but covered in a red and blue pattern reminiscent of Spider-Man, though with distinct alien features that made it uniquely Omnitrix. I call this one Arachnomonkey, Ben's transformed voice announced. Part spider powers, part alien DNA. That's amazing. Gwen exclaimed. Have you tried the others? Ben reverted to human form with a flash of green light. Not yet. Taking it slow, like Azimuth suggested. The dimensional properties are still settling. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching the sunset over Bellwood. You miss it, Gwen observed. The Marvel Universe. Ben nodded. Parts of it. The team dynamic, the different kinds of heroes. Spider-Man's quips that somehow managed to be worse than mine. But you don't regret coming back. Not for a second, Ben assured her. This is home. You, Kevin, Grandpa Max, you're my family. My team. He looked down at the Omnitrix. Besides, I brought back the best souvenirs ever. A distant explosion interrupted their conversation, something downtown, accompanied by screaming and the distinct sound of alien technology. Forever Knights. Gwen guessed, her hands already glowing with mana energy. Or maybe Animo's latest pet project. Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling through his transformations with practiced ease. Either way, hero time. As he selected a form, one of his classics, Heat Blast, Ben felt a renewed appreciation for his role in this universe. His journey through the Marvel dimension had changed him, expanded his understanding of what it meant to be a hero across realities. Going hero. He called out, slamming down the dial. As flames engulfed his transforming body, Ben Tennyson embraced his destiny once more, protector of Earth, wielder of the Omnitrix, and now, guardian of dimensional knowledge that spanned universes. In the end, it didn't matter which reality you defended. Heroes were heroes, across all dimensions. In the Avengers compound, Peter Parker stood in Tony Stark's laboratory, examining the readings from the dimensional monitors. A week had passed since the universes separated, since Ben Tennyson had contained the Forge's explosion and disappeared in the reality split. Still no sign of dimensional activity? Peter asked, though he already knew the answer. Tony shook his head, manipulating holographic data with practiced gestures. Nothing. The barriers have stabilized completely. Whatever Ben did, it worked perfectly. He didn't make it back to his universe, did he? Tony's hesitation answered before his words did. Strange doesn't think so. Containing an explosion of that magnitude, at the exact moment of dimensional separation. He left the implication hanging. Peter stared at the monitor, remembering the brief time he'd spent with the shape-shifting hero from another reality. He knew what he was doing. Made the sacrifice play. That's what heroes do, Tony replied quietly, his own experience with such choices evident in his tone. An alert from Friday interrupted the somber moment. Boss, I'm detecting an energy signature in Manhattan. Pattern matches recorded samples from the dimensional event. Both heroes snapped to attention. Location? Tony demanded. Midtown High School. Signature is localized and stable, not a breach, but definitely related to the Ben 10 universe. Peter was already pulling on his Spider-Man mask. I'm closest. I'll check it out. I'll alert the team, be ready for backup, Tony agreed. But approach with caution. After everything we've been through, the last thing we need is another dimensional incident. Minutes later, Spider-Man swung through the Manhattan skyline toward his old high school. The energy signature led him to the roof, where he found not a rift or a threat, but a small, glowing green device. What the? Spider-Man approached cautiously, web shooters ready. The device activated as he neared, projecting a holographic message. Ben Tennyson's face appeared, smiling confidently. Hey Spider-Man, or whoever from the Avengers finds this. If Azimuth's calculations are correct, this message pod should have reached your universe intact despite the dimensional barriers. Peter stared in amazement. He made it. He's alive. The hologram continued, just wanted to let you know I made it back home in one piece. Paradox pulled some time manipulation tricks at the last second. Typical mysterious Guardian stuff. Ben's holographic image glanced over his shoulder, as if checking that he wasn't overheard. The dimensional barriers are sealed tight, no more travel between our universes. But Azimuth figured out how to send this one-time message pod through. The image flickered slightly before stabilizing. Anyway, I just wanted to say thanks. For everything. Fighting alongside the Avengers, learning from you guys, it changed how I see being a hero. Oh, and Spider-Man. Your quips need work, but your heart's in the right place. Ben's hologram smiled once more. Keep being heroes. That's something that should stay the same in every universe. Ben Tennyson, signing off. The message ended, the device powering down and dissolving into harmless green energy that dispersed into the evening air, its one-time purpose fulfilled. Spider-Man stood motionless for a moment, then laughed softly behind his mask. Your quips need work. Says the guy who yells his aliens' names every time he transforms. He tapped his communicator. Tony. You're going to want to hear this. Our interdimensional friend made it home after all. As Spider-Man related the message to the team, a strange green glow briefly manifested around his web shooters, unnoticed but present nonetheless. A final gift from the Omnitrix, a small connection that had survived the dimensional separation. In two universes, now forever separate but forever changed by their brief convergence, heroes continued their eternal mission, different worlds, different challenges, same purpose. The multiverse was vast, but some things remained constant across all realities, evil threatened. Heroes rose. The battle continued. And somewhere between dimensions, if one knew where to look, the faintest green glow connected it all. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.